There's more. Yeah, do. We call to order the regular meeting of the Solvang City Council for February 13th, 2017. Will you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Deuce.
Present.
Jameson. Here. Toussaint.
Here.
Zimmerman.
Here.
Mayor Richardson.
Here, will you stand with me for the pledge? Place your hand over your heart. Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have a presentation from the Conference and Visitors Bureau. Tracy?
Good evening, Mayor, City Council member, audience, city staff. Tracy Farhad, Executive Director of the Solvang Conference and Visitors Bureau, and with me tonight is our Director of Digital Media, Brenda Ball, as well as our Conference Services Liaison, Sarah Brookshire, and Greg Corso, our sales contractor. And I don't think nope, she's coming later for board member here. We would like to give you our mid-year report about influencing results. And I've promised Brenda it will not be a 20-minute show. All right, first up, we wanted to let you know about our Experience Solvang app. We focused on digital these last 6 months, enhancing our Experience app with new business listings, a revised video landing page, and some services. I wanted to thank the city especially for the signs that you have around town in the planters, because it has a QR code that visitors download that app. So that makes it nice and easy. So I recommend everybody download that. And in fact, we had a 19% increase over the last 6 months with over 6,000 downloads on that app, and it's climbing, so we're excited about that. Our next core digital marketing platform is our website. December had its highest visitation to date, and local businesses received over 8,700 direct referrals. Also of note, mobile access to the solvangusa.com site just surpassed desktop users by 50%. It's mobile. Solvang with more than 1 million impressions over the last 6 months. Sponsors are capitalizing on our top rating for visitor eyeballs. Those are the 4 blue boxes you see there. That's how it looks on our website. And very highly visible page. We also created new microsites for key promotions like Solvang Car Free. And in order to reach our target audiences, we also included a pet-friendly page, as well as the LGBT, that's lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender-friendly Solvang. And last but not least, our latest China-ready initiatives. We collaborated with the Solvang Chamber of Commerce and the Allen Hancock College to get local businesses and visitor center ambassadors ready for the Chinese New Year. And I will be heading to 3 cities in April, in China, directly as a matter of fact, to meet with potential travel trade agencies and with media and to roll out that Solvang red carpet. We've been practicing our Chinese, haven't we? Dean gets it confused with his Danish. Also on our booking engine, we switched booking engines this year, this last fall. With declining numbers on the previous one, it had too small of a reach. So we needed to show a wider range of availability and prices. So now we'll get group reservations for 12 of our hotels on the global distribution network. More about that later in next July. Our email marketing remains key. Brenda has been able to maintain a higher than average open rate and a click-through rate for our database of 40,000 leads, and that's through receiving her newsletter each month. Now, public relations. This is always a fun part. Miss Laura Kath of Mariah Marketing, she keeps Solvang top of mind in the media. And here you are seeing the results of outreach, including the press releases, the media receptions, the hosted journalist visits, and all around, how can we get you to write about us? Can-do mentality. So these are just a few of the highlights from this last fall. There was a lot. Okay, let's go on. At our visitor center, our ambassadors have been working harder this year because there's been a 3.5% increase in our walk-in customers. And I want to show you here some happy guests from Denmark.
All kinds of famous things. You can get Easter yeah, and it's a beautiful town where you can see a lot of windmills and other stuff that is very Danish.
Yes.
And some might say a little prettier than Denmark.
So that's from our visitor center staff. Dean takes a lot of videos for us, so we have a lot of testimonials. Now, social media is the true disruptor and game changer in the marketing world these days. And in fact, in just 6 months, our Facebook reach has increased 7%, and Twitter has gone up to 85,000 reach just for Solvang. Of course, the world is all a Twitter these days. And you see we have over 33,000 social media followers and growing. In fact, here are some testimonials. Brenda monitors 6 social media channels for the CVB and finds out what folks are really posting and sharing about Solvang. It truly is the sharing economy, and it's not going anywhere but up. CVB puts on several local events. First, we were excited to launch our very first marketing strategy event in November. We had 50 local businesses and handed out a report, as well as signed up people to our co-op advertising and marketing opportunities. It was very successful. Of course, it's also the Yule Fest. That was our Celebrate Together. This is one of my favorite posters. How we know it's also working, in addition to the extra 1,800 people in the visitor center, was the fact that ticket sales were up as well as revenue, and we even charged more, so it's not like we were going less. And we also had the visitors, the tasting rooms here, very happy about the wine sales that had occurred during Yule Fest. Coming up is our 25th anniversary, if you can believe that, of the Taste of Solvang in March. And we've got a wonderful team that's working with us, Cultivate Events, to help put on that 25th anniversary. And of course, Brenda would kill me if I didn't mention tickets are available on solvangusa.com. Advertising. Advertising remains at the core of the CVB marketing programs. This fresh take on Solvang offerings via Your Next Great Getaway has garnered higher engagement numbers since launching last fall. So a rotating campaign of imagery has been strategically placed in traditional print and digital banners in key demographic markets. That's Southern California, the Northern Bay Area, and Pacific Northwest this year. We're going to be expanding to Arizona and Texas in the next quarter. We had some really good responses from our feeder markets. Our publications, we work cooperatively with a lot of agencies, including the State Tourism Office and Central Coast Tourism Council for these specific, and that was to publish 7 languages of the Solvang content to go out internationally with Visit California, thank you. And our popular flipbook style visitor's guide here on the left, distributed year-round in our visitor center and welcome centers and at trade shows and welcome bags, 80,000 of them. Thank you to the VSYV. They've been a wonderful partner to work on that joint publication. And international. What's been exciting about having PR and sales coverage over in Denmark, we contract with Atlantic Link to keep our Danish roots alive and kicking. And the first 6 months of advertising showed the value of articles over 1.1 million. That's the column on the far right, plus nearly 14 million eyes who have been looking at the articles about Solvang. So that definitely keeps the link going. And next up, we're going to be bringing 10 tour operators and the media coming in March on a Norwegian Airlines, because it's a new direct flight into LA. There's also a new SAS direct flight from Stockholm into Los Angeles. We'll be capitalizing on that. So we're going to be bringing in 10 people to select some hospitality products for their sale. We can always get you a full report for Atlantic Link on all their quarterly activities. And that's part of our influencing results. And now we want to switch to Tourism Outlook. It's looking good for Solvang. I want to thank Mr. Brad Vidra for this slide and the next one after that. Solvang tourism revenue is looking great, and with 53% bed tax collections, and if you could count even half of the sales tax, the city's general fund is supported by nearly 60% of hospitality dollars. So we are a very welcoming city. And in fact, here the bed tax collections show they've been rising ever since we recovered from the recession of 2008, with an all-time high of this past year of 74%. And to put it in perspective, we've always been at least 10 points behind Santa Barbara. Their average is 76, and we're at 74. I'm feeling very good about that. Next up, though, we got a little competition going, so we wanted to show a little bit about supply and demand. We can't rest on our laurels for too long because nearly 3,000 new rooms are coming online in the next 18 months in just the Tri-County areas. That is over 1 million more room nights where someone can go somewhere else, which is why Solvang must stay at the top of visitors' minds when choosing their next great getaway. Even with the 3% estimated RevPAR, that's revenue per available room, and ADR, that's average daily room rate, even with the 3% estimated increase in 16, 2017 is looking to slow as the supply finally overtakes the demand. Our additional challenges also include lost business from some of our properties that are slow to renovate and remodel, as well as a severe lack of adequate meeting space. Plus, there are new marketing monies out there for competitive destinations. They've created their own tourism business improvement districts, so the T-BIDs, and that is in Lompoc, Santa Maria, Ventura, SLO County. So there's all of a sudden a lot more money in a lot of our other destinations, so they're going to be advertising as heavily, if not more. But we've got some good stuff. National Travel Outlook. The sentiment's best since 2007. People want to get out there and travel. Also, more of our potential visitors will come up from the business world. That's up 34%. It was only 16% in 2010. And believe it or not, you only take 6 days to plan your next trip. That's the average booking and planning window. I remember when it was 6 months, and now it's 6 days. However, with the governor also giving a very conservative outlook recently, and the U.S. dollar value, and some tainted welcome mat issues for overseas, it has affected business with the travel ban. We're in for some adjustments. So plus the city of Santa Barbara has already noted the leveling off of their TOT and their vacation rental monies. Plus they actually have some infrastructure issues and some roads issues. So they're considering a half-cent tax raise, if you will, next year. So that's for that. But, so we're going to take advantage of one of these great growing markets, one very bright spot for Solvang, the Chinese traveler. We're monitoring this fastest and the largest growing inbound market to California. Each visitor, if you'll see there, spends nearly $7,500. That is 3 times the average highest spend from the UK or the Canadian traveler. And with that trip, a lot of it's on the luxury spend. And believe it or not, one of the comments from a slideshow we watched in our Chinese class, they said that you would be shopaholic too if all of a sudden you found all your favorite things on super duper sale. So we're definitely a lot cheaper than they are. They have been spending $2.6 billion in California alone. Now, growth is expected to climb 36% year over year by 2018. They stay an average of 14 nights, and 1.4 million came to California just this last year. And that's only 0.07% of their population that have passports. So the opportunity is huge. There's newly 131 weekly non-stops into California's gateway cities, LA and San Francisco, from 13 cities in China. And our state tourism office now has 5 offices in China, and they spend more in this market than any other market combined, and they're in 11 international markets. So that's why we learned to say, let's see if we can remember how to say Happy New Year in Chinese. Xin Yan Kuai La. Xin Yan Kuai La. Happy New Year. And that's why I'll be going to China in April to secure this very lucrative piece of the pie. So that's our tourism outlook. How am I doing, Brenda? Okay, that's why she makes me write it down. In the works, this is what we're doing going forward. Social media, as I mentioned before, is pretty key. And we've got a lot of user-generated content. That's basically you who put out posts and testimonials and go on Yelp and say what you're going to do. So we're investing in software to increase social media productivity in-house. And we're going to try to maximize those postings and those shares. We're also going to be gathering thousands of videos and imagery for free. And that's, well, it's as free as the software costs us, right? But at least rights are permitted. Next up, which we're pretty excited and why you now have an earbud packet in your hand, is because in collaboration with the Elverhoy Museum, we're excited to produce the Solvang Heritage Walk audio tour. So it's going to be for mobile device users, and it's going to be along 22 historic and heritage sites. And thanks to Esther and the Elverhoy, they've been providing all of the content as far as historic. And we want you to hear just a little bit about a sampling of what's to come with our audio tour. Brenda?
Welcome to Solvang. Upon first glance, it may look like you are in a fairy tale land of an amusement park, complete with provincial windmills, brightly painted half-timber buildings, and even a statue of the fabled Little Mermaid. And even more storybook-like, over the years, Solvang has actually been host to real princes and princesses of Denmark. But while you may feel whisked away to a different time and place, where you are is not a made-up fantasy land, but a true California city that is very much alive today.
So we have enlisted day-in audio tours, and they will have the professional actress voiceover who will talk about each of those 22 spots. So we're pretty excited about that. It'll also be produced in Chinese as well as English. And it's going to live on our new Experience Solvang app. So those are some great points. Now, next, what we were talking about was our midweek lodging. The hotels are pretty good on the weekends. They said, don't even go out there and work too hard for us on the weekends. It's coming. So we've been really making that effort. And we're entering our trade show season now with 6 trade shows coming up to woo both domestic and international tour operators, meeting planners, and also to talk to travel portals to bring more people to Solvang midweek. Greg was able to get a tour company, it's an online travel agency, an OTA out of Canada, where they were getting 1.5 million searches on Solvang. I mentioned this to you before. They went up to 2.5 million searches, but they needed more properties to refer. So they went from having just 1 Solvang property to now 4 properties who will be able to take advantage of that connection. So group sales. Our group sales efforts have actually been very fruitful these first 6 months. This fall, we welcomed another 1,300 cruise ship passengers, and with more time in Solvang, their total spend dollars is increasing. That was based upon last year when they still did a 45-minute to an hour historic walking tour. We realized that they really didn't want to have another walking tour. They wanted more shopping time, so we stopped giving them a walking tour. Et voila, we hope they're spending more money. And what you see under the meeting plan of tour operator leads, Greg and Sarah have tackled 68 confirmed leads with a 30% conversion rate to overnight stays, with 669 room nights with over 300 attendees. And to show you how that works out in money, this is one of the reports we can now get. With those room nights at the average of $124 per person, that brought in over $82,000 to Solvang hotels and businesses, compared to a day tripper who spends on average $33. And then with that, of course, city gets the TOT, and we think that combined, that's pretty priceless to have your extra sales team. So with that, we want to thank our partners that we are using and that we leverage all of our resources with, because we don't do this alone. And it takes partnership and resources to bring the biggest return on your investment. So we want to thank those partners for working with us, especially our volunteer board of directors, Ken Harwood, Susan Williams, Matt Robb, Kim Jensen, Angie Horn, and Laura Hanberg are your newest board members for 2017. And then the last slide, last but not least, the rest of the crew. And we want to thank you for continuing your support and your investment in your #1 marketing agency. Thank you.
Are there any, Tracy, don't go away yet. Is there any questions, any comments? Was that Brenda's presentation?
Brenda.
Beautiful job, Brenda. Great stuff. You're really coming along, you know. It's really good. You ought to be proud of her.
I am.
It's really been good. I'm really impressed, Tracy, with what you presented this evening. It's and at $4 million, we're hitting over $4 million in TOT. You talked about the increase in rooms that are going to be available. Is that going?
Peak. Oh, yes, you're talking about the 3,000 rooms that are
Right.
coming, yeah.
Have you any idea what impact that may have on our TOT and revenues?
Yes, well, they think it's going to level out and flatten as far as the occupancy. The room rate has been able to still be at a decent amount and is projected to being a little higher, like 2 to 3%. But because you're getting the extra rooms, it's going to, the minute you have too many rooms and not as much, it's going to have to be absorbed. So the thought is that it could possibly be absorbed by the end of 2018. But the study that was done by PKF for Santa Barbara just last year, it was only 6 months ahead of when all these other properties came online. They didn't even know Ventura was going to have that many properties that were coming online at the same time.
Can you predict an increase or decrease in our TOT?
I wish I could, but I will certainly let you know what it is afterwards. Part of it is, for instance, with the 200 hotel rooms that came online with the casino recently, a lot of those customers were at the Hotel Cork, and so now they're able to be accommodated at the casino. So they were estimating a 20 to 30%, difference. But we see that as good because the Hotel Cork has such a nice average daily room rate. So having more inventory will only help us. But the more that other people have the inventory before we do, then we have to at least make sure that all the hotels are up to snuff and that we have as many offerings.
Do you see our Danish image as a real draw for the Chinese?
Absolutely. In fact, I had no clue until we started marketing to Chinese about 5-6 years ago that they even were raised on Hans Christian Andersen fairy tales. Mm-hmm. So it was very big for them. Yeah. Yes, Brenda. Turn it off.
One of the issues they pointed out to us is that the Chinese, their cities are growing so rapidly, and they have huge cities like LA. So it's not so interesting to come and see our big cities because they already have them. But it's very interesting to see Solvang because this is what they pictured a European city looking like. And this is the only place you can
That's good
find
to
one.
know. That we keep our image, you bet. Mm-hmm. Thanks a lot, Tracy. It's a great presentation. Did you have anything to say?
Yeah, if we're going to do this conversation now, I have some stuff to say about
Tracy?
just ideas and some thoughts that I have.
Getting away so quickly.
That's all right.
So you're doing a great job. I like everything that's going on. What comes to mind though is, we have people on social media and whatnot, but I guess my thought is refocusing our attention and giving the tourists a true experience in Solvang, and kind of retarget and refocus our concentration essentially right here. And outside of Danish days, maybe some type of theatrical PCPA members maybe come in on a weekend, and they're hanging out in town in traditional Danish attire, or just real user interactive experience, and really focus in on being a Danish community, because I think that's what's going to obviously that's what sets us apart from everywhere else.
Absolutely does.
And if we focus on giving a true experience, and that's where we start. The buzz creates itself. We don't have to create it; it'll create itself, and that's when it's word of mouth and organic. And
That's why we're working very hard on the social media platforms for being able to. The public can create it much faster than even we can. So we just need to corral it, and that's why we call ourselves content, curators, if you will, so that we can actually then say, hey, how about doing this? It's like how we created our Sweet Treats Trail, and basically that was Brenda on Google search for all of our businesses that offer sweets, and now we have a Sweet Treats Trail. So it's that kind of thing that helps us, create product that they're going to want to get. I'm going to put you on my events committee. I can see.
okay, yeah, and I guess one last thought is, just we have the theater here, we have the museum, and I think it can be a real seamless, nice synergy of everybody's expertise, and things can be delegated out properly to where, it should be fairly easy to put something really kind of cool and an organized experience in town, so people are really getting something. That's all.
Thank you.
But thanks.
Okay, since we're making suggestions, talk about our weather as compared to Santa Barbara, Ventura, especially May, June, July into, pretty much ends at August. Where they can go 3 or 4 days without seeing the sun.
Yep.
Or for an hour from 4 to 5 if they're lucky. And we have, nice days up here. Not boiling hot, but, a little bit of fog in the morning, but, our weather's a whole lot better.
That was also brought up by the Chinese tour operators. We really take for granted the fact that you can see the sky and you can see stars, et cetera. So on video interviews, they were talking all about, and you can actually see the sky. So, yeah, weather's key.
They must love our air here, too.
Oh, yeah.
Because their air in China is not the best.
They don't need face masks.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, thank you. I look forward to bringing back the results from that.
A few years ago, I suggested, and maybe you've considered it, and maybe could consider it again as a welcoming maiden Danish garb to welcome at least during the high volume times when there's a lot of tour buses coming in. I realize that they can't be there at every one, but the idea of maybe passing out coupons or even that translation thing, some sort of thing like that.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. We like that, especially for where they are and getting them through all the rest of the town.
That's right. Yeah. Any other comments? Thanks, Tracy. Great presentation.
Thank you. And I wanted to really thank my staff because they do an amazing job, because they're the ones who make me look good. So thank you.
Thank you. Next, we go to the city manager's report.
Just a few things to report. One, we want to thank our transit community because we did a community survey recently and we received 366 responses to our survey, which was quite surprising. So that's to find out what we may lack in our transit system. So our transit consultant will be evaluating that data and we'll bring something back to the council on that. Second, just a reminder that the city offices will be closed next Monday for President's Day. So if you have business with the city, we will be closed that day. And then thirdly, for those of you who've yet to pay your business certificate, which was due the 1st of January, that penalty would be going up to $100 at the end of this month. So please come on in if you haven't paid your fee and pay it. So that's it.
Thank you. Next is public communications, written or verbal. At this time, please direct comments to the City Council regarding consent calendar items or matters not on the agenda but within the jurisdiction of the council. Speakers are limited to 5 minutes, and first is Fred Koval, followed by Larry Edwards.
Good evening. Rainfall. Mayor and City Council members. There's 2 handouts on the dais there for each of you. The first has to do with government finances considered criminal, which was written by Harris Sherline in the Sunday's Voices section of the Santa Barbara News Press. Looked like this. I'm sure you have it on the dais there. Good. I see somebody affirming that. Great article. And the author lives in Buellton. He's the one that saved the cottage hospital here. He's an accountant, and he writes good articles. My main theme tonight is you have the rainfall up on my hill. And it covers it during the rain year, starting October the 1st, 2016 to September, into September of this year. I tried to be pretty accurate here. Have the gauge set up in hundredths of an inch. And it does show some globs of rain over a period of a few days, now and then. And our total is pretty good. It's right on the mark, a little over 14 inches. However, I want to mention that I did walk with the kids this past Saturday to Buellton from here. And I noticed that when you get 2/3 of the way to Buellton, there's a road that crosses over the river. It's got 6 culverts, and a road over the top of it goes to the old Gardner Ranch. And that's how you get up on the hill to the top of the house up there. Good flowing water there. I was really surprised. It was so good, there was fish. I'm not going to exaggerate the flow. So that was kind of interesting to see that. Good flows on both sides of the culvert. And we continued on along the road till we got under 101 and then up, then under Avenue of the Flags Bridge and up there and crossed over and went north. Okay, what do we see here? We see not really many long durations of rainfall. What's it going to take to fill up Lake Cachuma? 2 weeks of steady rain. That's the only thing that's going to bring us up to the spill area. Plus, you hear what is the current capacity of the lake right now. I don't know if it's 13%, 14%, 15%, 18% might be that high. Okay. However, what people fail to understand is there's purchased water in that lake, such as state water, plus other waters that are being stored there. That adds up to 8%. So the inflow from rains has been about 10%. We've got another rain coming that looks pretty good here at the end of this week. Could be 2.5 inches. The question is, how long will it last? Until we get a sustained rate, it's going to be a hard one to get to. That 25% that we've heard is where we can get a spill. We'll see what happens. And of course, our river wells right now can't be pumped. Why not? Because they're within 150 feet of the live stream. However, that's the good news is, hey, we're pumping state water as much as we can get. That's the good news. That'll help us blend to get our TDS and sodium and chloride levels down, which is what we needed to do all along. Okay.
Thank you, Fred. Larry Edwards, followed by Scott Burns.
Thank you and good evening. My name is Larry Edwards. My address is 2640 Stag Canyon Road in Santa Ynez. I am an employee of Montecito Bank and Trust in the Wealth Management Group. And I'm here tonight representing the Rotary Club of Solvang, where I serve as chairman of the Vocational Service Committee, Avenue of Service at this point. My purpose for being here is twofold. One is to make you aware of a project that we have launched, and the other is to invite your participation in the project. The name of the project is Promoting Student Awareness Through Job Shadowing, and that's the project title. We're working with the Santa Barbara County Education Office and the high school, Santa Ynez Valley High School. I think there's some handouts on your places there. There are 3 pages. And the first is the flyer that Santa Barbara County Education Office has prepared and created to support our project. It talks about job shadowing and what the students do, what the teacher does, what the host organization does before, during, and after the job shadow visit. A job shadow visit is an unpaid visit by a student to a business for 2 to 4 hours to observe and become aware of what happens in that business, the activities, the management of the business, and as important as the career kind of vocational exposure is just the exposure to a business environment where they have to show up on time, dress properly, behave, write a thank you letter, that sort of thing. An example of job shadowing is Mayor Richardson's auctioning off the Day with the Mayor at our fundraiser each year. The big difference, though, is that the students don't have to pay like Art Caslow did last year. It's unpaid, and the host businesses do not incur compensation costs, or do they incur any liability. That's taken care of by the county. The second page in your packet is the job description from the Solvang Rotary Club. Talks about the rationale, the premise, why Rotary is well suited for facilitating these job shadow visits, including that in every Rotary Club, members are among the leaders in the community and they know the other leaders. Also, it draws upon resources that Rotary has that are in plentiful supply, energy, time, and connections. And connections is where you folks come in. You know people, you may have businesses, you know other businesses that you may believe would be a good host organization for job shadows. And what we look for from people like you and the other Rotary clubs is simply identification of the business decision maker at the individual businesses and filling out the form that is the third page. You may or may not want to talk to the business decision maker about job shadowing. It seems to work best when the person hasn't been contacted previously, and I can go there and contact them and tell them what it's all about. So that's what I'm trying to do, is to make you aware, as other folks in the valley, of the project and invite your participation. I'll be happy to answer any questions that this might bring up.
I'd be happy to contribute to as a mayor for a day, kind of a auxiliary sort of a thing, to take a student or two throughout the city on a city tour, more or less. And I don't know how many students you would consider or the time frame. It'd be just a one-day orientation.
Yeah, the idea is like a one-on-one, it'd be a single student or a very small group of students, so that they get an idea of the actual business environment. In terms of frequency, and this may not apply to you, Mr. Mayor, it will be from time to time as the students get notified of interest from Mindy Christian is the ROP person at the high school, and she will be organizing the visits, so it's a matter of...
Well, I'm going to speak for the city manager, but I think that we that we'd be happy to take on a student or two, at least for a one-day overview of the city. Those that might be interested in government and those sorts of things, it would be an encouraging thing.
Yeah, and speaking for the city manager, I would agree.
I'll give you another example. Hans has moved his business to Santa Maria, as I understand it. But there's a welder by the name of Bramson in Buellton. And if Hans were to think that that person might be a good host, he could fill out the form and I'd contact him. And I've yet to be in front of a situation where they've said no.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure that'll happen. But in the last 6 weeks or so, so far so good.
I've been involved in programs similar to this through mentoring or ROP programs over the years, and I find that they're really good. I've kept in contact, or I guess I should say, some of the students have kept in contact with me for a number of years afterwards. So I would certainly support something like this and encourage others to get involved. It's great to get kids out of their phones and actually observe something happening for real.
Are there any other comments?
I'll definitely fill out an application for my own business.
Perfect.
That's a good racket he's in.
Do the kids have transportation, or is it like based in the valley only?
The students will provide their own transportation. The county does not want any driving during the job shadow visit, nor can the students drive. So it's a liability issue, and it restricts things a little bit, but that's my understanding of how it's going to work.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Larry. At least you
Thank
got
you all very much.
some leads.
Yeah.
Thank you. Scott Burns, followed by Esther Jacobson Bates.
Good afternoon, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Scott Burns. I live in Santa Barbara, 2319 Garden Street. I'm representing Donate Life California. Donate Life California is an organization that is involved with organ donations. Right now in Santa Barbara County, there's about 190 people on a waiting list for either kidneys, hearts, liver, and nationwide there's about 120,000 people that are on a waiting list for organ donations. The reason I'm involved is about 5 years ago, my kidney failed, and I really wasn't sure what would go on, and I got involved with Donate Life to learn about it, and I was a member of what you'd call a candidate for about 3 years, and then about 18 months ago I got a new kidney while I was I was on my friend's sailboat in Santa Cruz Island when I got the Harbor Patrol from Santa Barbara come pick me up. Since then I have gotten a little more involved. I've been speaking mostly to the counties, Santa Barbara and Ventura County and most of the cities, asking you guys to proclaim April as Donate Life Month. It would be nice if you guys can do that proclamation. If that's possible, I would come back and do a more formal presentation. Basically, about 96% of the people in California that donate, that are registered to have their, to donate life to do an organ transplant with the pink dot, about 96% of them get them at the driver's license when they go to the DMV. But this is more institutional advertising, so people know that it's a really good cause to go. The lady who died was a nurse who I've got her kidney, and it was just that she decided to, do the red dot or the pink dot. So anyway, I'm hoping you guys are willing and able to do that in April. And if you have any questions, I'm here to answer any of them. Thank you.
Yes, I think we would be willing to do a proclamation. If you do contact the city clerk or the city manager, either one, and we'll set that up. And then you'll come back, we'll make a proclamation, we'll come back for a presentation.
Presentation, whatever time works for you guys, we'll do an email back and forth and make it work.
Now, we receive these on the desk.
Those are just for you guys to have. There's a term called swag.
Oh, yes, yeah.
And I'm a volunteer, but the corporate office out of LA gives me more stuff than I can ever handle. And I have no use for everything they give me. Hopefully you guys can have a use for them.
There's no Rolex watch in here, though.
Keep digging, keep digging.
That's good, swag.
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much for your presentation. Esther Jacobson Bates, followed by John Matthews.
Brad, I brought some stuff. Extra. Good evening, Mayor Richardson, City Council members, Esther Jacobson Bates, Elverhoy Museum of History and Art, Executive Director. And I'm going to start. I'd like to welcome Councilman Toussaint. It's my first time being here since you've taken your seat at the dais. Another kind of call out to Councilman Deuce. He's got a new title, Bestefar, we say in Danish. He's a grandpa, so congratulations. So I'm here with a brief update.
Kind of jumped the gun on me there. That was going to be my comment, but
I'm
that's all right. I'll fill in the details.
Good. All good news. And congratulations. So I'm here with a brief update from Elverhoy, and I'm still smiling today. It was one of my favorite days of the year. It was our annual Volunteer Appreciation Luncheon. And since we're near Valentine's Day, we kind of theme it around that. And of course, our volunteers are the heart of our organization. 57 volunteers attended our luncheon over at Quai Seurat. We recognized 4 new volunteers, all of them in their 30s, which is a lovely carrying on of the tradition there. Like many nonprofits, volunteers are essential to the sustainability of our organization. They're the face, the voice of our community museum. They also welcome visitors from near and far. Our volunteers give the gift of time to create our kind of warm and very lively cultural center at Elverhoy. They learn, teach, raise funds, staff events and exhibits, keep up our historic building, make financial plans, and new friends. I consider myself very fortunate that I get to go to work every day, and I'm going there to work with people who are there because they want to be. Couldn't ask for anything better. At Elverhoy, over the past year, we've welcomed 20,000 visitors. We've had 6 new art exhibitions that delighted and educated our viewers and interpreted the area's culture and our natural beauty. We've celebrated regional artists and cultural traditions. We've had inventive workshops, lectures, slideshows, and programming, all of which was offered free of charge. So we also continue our work to collect and exhibit the history and the Danish culture of Solvang while maintaining our historic building that houses Elverhoy. Cultural diplomacy is also ongoing as I work with the Danish Royal Danish Embassy, the Danish Ambassador, cultures, and ministers. Last spring, we hosted the Copenhagen Girls Choir for a visit and their performance in Solvang. This April the 13th, we will host a Danish trio for a visit and performance as they tour the West Coast. Both of these performances were facilitated by our links with the embassy. I hope that we'll also have the opportunity to host Ambassador Lars Losa later this year. I had the pleasure of meeting him in Washington, D.C. when I was there for a conference last May. He was relatively new on the job at that point and was very interested in coming and visiting our Danish community. And of course, they love coming to California, and we're a great place to stop. Elverhøy provides community support and has served as the cultural component for the city of Solvang since 1988 when we opened our doors. We educate and share Solvang's history, culture, and art with our visitors and residents. We provide free meeting space for local nonprofit organizations. We're kind of that sweet spot between North and South County, so that works well. We support the Conference and Visitors Bureau. We work with the Chamber of Commerce, city businesses, and nonprofits in providing cultural, historical, and art information, events, and activities. As Tracy told you, I've been working with the CVB to provide content for the historical walking tour. I have had the pleasure of working with Lisa as we picked out photos, and Brad too, for historical images. I hope you've seen the 2 utility boxes downtown Solvang on Copenhagen Drive with the historic images, and I think they turned out really nice. A great addition to town, and I look forward to maybe picking some more spots to work on. So today, on your handouts there, I have a little invitation and would like to invite you to join us for our new art exhibition opening this Saturday, February 18th. The work on display there is the union of 2 different Mexican-American experiences that focus on remembrance and veneration of people and places from the artist's past and present. And it's shaping up to be quite a dynamic show with site-specific installation art and experiences. And then we continue on May 1st with our Culture Club event, which is kind of a cultural cocktail of art and food and music and one-night happenings. And this is part of an occasional series. Last year, we celebrated agriculture, Native American language and oral traditions, sustainable fishing, and Solvang's Danish culture. But in closing, I would like to express, most of all, my appreciation to you and to the city for supporting institutions and nonprofit organizations like Elverhøy. The collective impact of the grant program enhances the quality of life in our community and is enjoyed by residents and visitors alike. Thank you.
Thank you, Esther. Are there any questions for Esther? Thanks very much,
Sorry,
Esther.
Hans. Thank you.
It's a good lead-in, Esther.
John Matthews? Followed by Crispy Company.
Hello, Mayor, City Council, audience, and staff. My name is John Matthews. I am a member of the Solvang community, but I'm here as a board member of the Solvang Festival Theater. And like Esther preceded me, my purpose here tonight is to thank you for the grant process. Your participation in giving us funds has helped us greatly in this past year. I want to give you a couple of quick examples of that. We've hired a theater consultant who is out of Los Angeles, who's going to help us vet 4 architectural firms for us to decide what we can and should do with the future of the theater. It's come to our attention through work with engineers that if we don't address some issues, we could lose her down the road. It's nothing to be shockingly alarmed about, but if we don't do our due diligence, we are in danger of losing her. So that said, we did hire the consultant. The good news story here is he's out of LA, but he actually attended PCPA. He's climbed our light poles, which are a big issue. So he has a lot of theater experience. He's gone around all over the world repairing theaters like ours. So we feel very, very good to have him on board. He's doing it about half cost that he normally charges everyone else. So he's passionate about our theater and trying to help us. We also just upgraded the concessions electrical, where we put in its own service to take that service off the theater because it was causing conflict with the main panel. So that was a major project. We just put about $30,000 into the concession stand. We also did some upgrades in the green room as well. That said, that's what we did with some of the funds that you gave us last year. But I just want to give you all a heads up, and as I'm saying thank you, that our needs are going to be increasing. Or we've come to you before in the past for funds for what we've considered just maintenance. The needs of the theater are going to go above and beyond that within the next few years. We are looking at phasing the renovations that we're looking at over the next 2 to 5 years. One of our major goals is not to interrupt the PCPA season, but down the road, if we do a major change, they are even willing to work with some kind of fluctuation in their season. But they're 2 years out already. We're committed to them for the next 2 years. So that's the kind of things that are going on with the theater. We want you guys to all be aware of it, so that as your planning goes forward, hopefully you can keep us in mind. And answer any questions if you have any.
Any questions for John? I'd like to comment, though. I think you're doing a wonderful job, and that theater is one of the crown jewels in our city.
Well, thank you.
It's very important to keep that guy going and open.
It is. You know, what's interesting is, and if anybody wants to, I mean, we're taking the new trustees from Allen Hancock through for a tour, because most people get to see it when PCPA has it all dressed out. And you go there at night, and it just looks great. And we upgraded all the all the lobby lighting's already been done, so outside looks really fantastic. If you were to go down in there Friday when it rains and walk what we call the VOM, which is underneath the seating, you'll see where the problems lie. There's been a lot of leakage that's been going on for years. They've patched it, and it still leaks. So the poles are all attached to that infrastructure. So once you start touching the poles, which have to be done, then it is, okay, what are we going to do about that? And since we're doing that, what's the wish list of making the theater a better facility than it currently is? It was built very quickly. As some of you know, 43 years ago. It's been a crown jewel, as you say. It's just been a home run. So all those people in the community that built that theater should be just applauded again and again and again. But that said, she needs some attention. So we're looking into that, and just want to let you guys know that. We're going to try and ask all the questions ourselves, come up with the answers before we really bring it to the public. But just want to give you a heads up.
Well, thank you, John.
Okay. Thank you for your time.
Good, very much. Christie Company.
Hi. I'm new to this, the first time I've been here, so forgive me if so hello to everyone. This is regarding well 22 upgrade. We live right directly across this well 22 upgrade. Sorry. Okay, so in the interest of time, I just want to let you know up front that I did a lot of research on this. We started involvement with this in January. Evidently, we were notified about this well upgrade in December, but we did not get that notification. There was a meeting in front of our house. We had family obligations, and we couldn't attend that meeting. So off the notes, we went from there. Then we went to the meeting in January. We found out in the meeting that there was this extra space. We didn't understand this at the time, and then we all figured out, the neighbors that were there, that there was this extra space that was going to be enclosed, that they couldn't tell us what was going to go behind the well 22 by itself, extra space, but they didn't know, they couldn't tell us in the future what the equipment was going to be. So with that, we just wanted to say, because I do represent other people in the neighborhood, the Bergs and the Busters who live next door to us, that we do support well 22. We do want you to know that we do believe in the good of the water for our community, and we understand all the implications. We are really concerned about the mixing station that is proposed there and the chemicals involved. So we did talk about moving that to the other well that is not near residential homes. I believe it was well 21. We also do not want the extra space, this future space that is not identified of what's going to go there, that's going to be used in the next 10 years. We are very concerned because I went through all the reports. I really want to do a good job, so I could at least explain, okay, I looked here and I can understand it. I went back to 2009 in the main master plan. I went to 2011. I went into the 2014. I went into 2012 master plan. I went into all the environmental impact reports. All along, the well 22 was never included because it had toxic water. It was, I'm probably not going to get it right, the hydrogen sulfide that needed to be treated. So this is why we need this mixing station so we can use the water. Okay, well, I understand that. I've been told this is why we have the 20% of this mixing station, of this extra space that they're going to fence in. Okay, so that's that. So all along in this master plan, well 22 was not viable because it's toxic. Now, in October, there were these, let me see if I get this right, the negative declarations environmental impact reports, and there was another acronym that was, I believe, an ID, that were done, and I went through these. All of a sudden, well 22 shows up. And all of a sudden, well 22 is now considered as a main part of the master water plan. And all of a sudden, well 22 also includes the next priorities, which are 3 and 4. 3 and 4 were included way back when in 2011. And priorities 3 and 4 are very extensive. They include pressure pumping stations. They include backup generators that run and have diesel. They include other types of water treatments that go on between brackish water and drinking water. And we just don't know what this other percentage that's going along behind the wall. Now, Matt has been great. We get to work with him on how this is going to look. We're looking at it directly. Okay, and that's wonderful in the landscaping and everybody's been wonderful, but it's this extra part and this mixing piece where we don't know what's really going on. And if you look into what the reports state in these, from the Meridian Company and the Biologic Services Company that did the work, there's pollution that's brought up with it. There's other concerns, and I did go through. I have all of this, but we only have 5 minutes, and I thought maybe a lot of you have already gone through this, but I can certainly present all of this to you at another time or another meeting if you want to. But I just wanted to let you know how we feel, and I don't know if we can go forward with the well project, because I don't know if you're strapped for time and you need to work, keep going on this because of permits. There was a mention of some kind of permit that would run out with the state. I forget, I have the name of it in here anyway. So if you could go forward with just the well 22 expansion part, but this other part, if you could hold off on that till it's identified. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. If you have anything else to add, I'll give you another minute if you were satisfied with your presentation, or are there other comments you'd like to have?
Oh, there's so many things I checked. I think the main thing is that throwing in a piece for the well 22 that wasn't considered in all of the environmental impacts in the very beginning is after the fact. And then all of a sudden and say, well 22 is now all of a sudden part of the master plan when it's not written there. It's written as a non-viable toxic well. It's not written as part of the overall big plan. And we don't know what priorities 3 and 4 are stated. It lists a lot of really ambiguous, high-level things that need to be used for state, mandates, and water quality and pollution control and all these things. In addition, I have very bad respiratory issues and allergy issues, and if all these chemicals and stuff that we just don't know about. So I don't understand how government can make a decision about something in the future when they don't know what it's going to be, and they don't know the impact of what it's going to be. And if you built it now, what can you put behind there without doing an additional report later? Maybe you don't have to. And then we don't know what the impacts are.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. I have no other speaker slips. Does anyone else wish to speak that hasn't submitted a speaker slip? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the council then. Council comments and requests. Would you like to start, Neil?
So I'll just go down the line. Fred, thank you for your cognitive influence and contribution to the meeting. Appreciate that. Visitors Bureau, thank you for all your great efforts and all the hard work you're doing. Elroy, I think Elroy and the theater are key elements to the city, and we need to make sure that we give the support that's needed there for those things. And I think we need to have better communication with Well 22 and any other project in the future that we're doing, so there isn't any kind of mystery or, I guess, it's obvious that there's some miscommunication or unawareness, and to kind of not have to have that uncertainty there and the whole mystery. We need to demystify whatever it is that we're doing. And I know, Matt, you do your best, and whatever we got to do that, so we can make sure we move forward with the projects that we need to move forward with. Outside of that, request for staff. I'm ready to graduate and go paperless. So, yeah, it needs, yeah. And if I could do something like this, that would be great. And I can give you back the iPad. It's pretty shot as far as processing and
We can definitely work on that.
Okay, cool.
We like to see paperless.
Excellent. Yeah, and I can go full paperless, take the binder, ball and chain away.
All right.
Yep, and other than that, welcome everybody. Thanks.
Ryan?
I guess I'll have to say I'm up for the demystification of the Well 22. With regards to the Visitors Bureau, I'd just like to say as a world traveler that it's pretty exciting when I get to go overseas to all these different places, and you think you live in such a small little town, but when I go, anywhere, I run into people, I'm in conversation with them, and they know what Solvang is. So that's pretty cool. With regard to kind of what Neil was going with the paperless situation, I'm going to be running a little bit of a hybrid mode while I try to figure out not only how to navigate this binder, but how I'm going to translate it over to here. I think one of my first issues is with regard to the pagination of the PDF documents. It'd be really nice if, how do I describe this the best, but starting from the very first page of the PDF, if there was a number 1 and then everything followed through that way, so that way I could actually keep track of where, so that way if up here someone else is using a packet and they want to say, well, page 33, I need to be able to pop over right on 33 here, not doing a translation of, well, Joni says 33, but that means 28 to me, and figuring that out. So that could be done a little better.
We can work on that.
So that should be pretty simple. And then there's no legitimate SSL certificate on the Exchange server, so I can't actually tie it in with Microsoft Outlook, which would help me organize all my folders. So I can already see that Neil will probably run into that issue as well.
We can have Patrick work on that.
So I've already kind of raised that with Patrick, and I'm just letting you know that if he's requesting maybe to spend $100 somewhere for a SSL certificate, it's coming from me.
All right. Got it.
I would suggest you work closely with Patrick because you're an expert. Over on this end of the dais, a bunch of old fogies. Here on this end of the dais, young kids coming around, the new millenniums, and they're trying to bring us kicking and screaming
But,
into
you know, they're
their world.
willing to teach us. Ryan's willing to teach
Yeah,
us.
he is. So I appreciate that. Hans?
Okay, so the granddaughter showed up last Monday, but early in the morning. Healthy little girl. Her name is Rook, like Brook without the B. Rook, like the rook on the chess game. Yeah. So anyway, everybody's fine, and looking forward to spoiling the heck out of a kid and sending her home. What?
No, it's Solvang.
No, she's up in Orchid.
Okay. Oh, that's close.
Yeah, that's close. We're up there a lot.
Okay.
So anyway, I guess that's about all I have. Fred, I thought state water was not considered as part of. Yes, it runs through, but I don't think they count it because it's supposed to be passed through.
Oh, no, it's part of the level in the lake.
Yeah, it makes the level, but I don't. Does that show as inflow? Because I'm watching county flood control. They show inflow, and I think the state water that shows up as its own category.
It does, and it's on a huge set of levels that is not really produced by the county flood control and water conservation district. It's actually produced by ID number 1. They're the authors of the real levels that are in that lake.
Okay. End of comments.
Joni?
Okay, so since Hans talking about his granddaughter, I have a granddaughter too, but she's 10, and she has now announced to me that she's taller than I am. So once again, I am the shortest one in our family, and I will be for a long time, I have a feeling. But she is so proud of that. We measure every time we're together, and she has her little marks on our kitchen door. And yep, she's there. She's over 2'2", so that's what happens. But that's okay with me. She stopped wearing my shoes. That's good. That's all.
You know, you mentioned earlier Harris Sherline. I received emails from him regularly. He sent me one today that's authored by Andy Caldwell. And I don't know if this is going to be an editorial in the paper or some other form, but it's regarding the crisis right now at Oroville Dam. And he's talking about that more than a decade ago, federal and state officials in some California's largest water agencies rejected concerns that the massive earthen spillway at Oroville Dam, at risk of collapse Sunday night, and prompting the evacuation of 185,000 people, could erode during heavy winter rains and cause a catastrophe. These environmental groups, the Friends of the River, the Sierra Club, and the South Yuba Citizens League, filed a motion with the federal government on October 17, 2005, as a part of Oroville Dam's relicensing process, urging federal officials to require that the dam's emergency spillway be armored with concrete rather than remain a earthen hillside. The groups filed a motion with the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission and said that the dam, built and owned by the state of California, finished in 1968, did not meet modern safety standards because in the event of extreme rain and flooding, the fast-rising water would overwhelm the main concrete spillway, which it did, then flow down the emergency spillway, which would cause heavy erosion and create flooding for communities downstream, and would also cause a failure known as the loss of crest control. I'm not going to read all this, but the important thing that I'm going to speak of right now is something that we have to put on our radar. The FERC rejected the request. However, the State Department of Water Resources and the water agencies that would likely have to pay the bills for the upgrades said they were unnecessary. These agencies included the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California, which provides water to 19 million people in Los Angeles, San Diego, and other areas, along with state water contractors, an association of 27 agencies that buy water from the state of California. We are a part of that with CCWA. The association includes other. The important thing that I wanted to bring out is that I've heard on the news, and I don't know how they came up with the number because fires don't cost this much. I heard the number $200 million. I don't know if that's planned reconstruction or the cause of the potential cost of this particular crisis. $200 million spread out among all these water agencies it's going to hit Solvang one way or another. And I just want people to be aware of, we're going in, not at this time, but we're going into a water rate study that won't include this information probably, but that in the future we may be expected to be hit with other costs that we don't anticipate, similar to the drought costs that we didn't anticipate. And I just want the folks to realize that we're doing everything we can to keep our water prices under control, but so much of that is outside our sphere of influence, our ability to control it. So this is a red flag coming up and warning you that we could be hit with some massive costs later on because of this Oroville Dam. This is where we get our state water from, is Oroville Dam. So that's just the warning, and that's the end of my speech for now. I hate to bring you good news on the beginning of the year, but I'm doing it. Correspondence received by City Council. Does anybody want to discuss any of that? Approval of the agenda as presented. Do we want to change any of the agenda? If not, on to the City Council minutes of January 23rd and January 27th, 2017. Does anybody have any additions, corrections, or deletions to those minutes?
I have a correction.
Uh-huh.
So it's page 4. Looks like it's under item 6. So 4 or 5 of the Solvang City Council minutes. We start off with very first line, Councilmember Zimmerman. And if you come down a little ways, it says Councilmember Toussaint asked for a future discussion on suggestions to lower wastewater cost.
Okay. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Ninth paragraph down.
Ninth paragraph down. Wastewater just needs to be replaced with water.
Delete wastewater, change to water. Is there any other corrections? If not, can I have a motion including that change, please?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded, and all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed 5-0. I said aye, too. On the consent agenda, does anybody wish to pull any items on the consent calendar? Seeing none, then we'll have
If we want to talk about the demystification of well 22, would we pull that off the...
We can discuss that right now if you'd like.
Okay.
So we can pull that item for the agenda. Are we going to make it? Okay, we can discuss it. With that, I have to recuse myself because I live within 500 feet of this site. So I'm going to... We have a fresh councilman. He's the mayor pro tem. I don't think he's ever run a meeting, but he's going to tonight. Just for this particular item. So we can take care of the well 22 subject, which is 6D, first or last?
Why don't we do the remaining ones just by regular motion and get those done with while you're all here?
Right.
I would recommend to Councilmember Toussaint that when he votes on the consent agenda, that if he has any items that he would have disqualified himself on, he just note for the record that he's not voting on that item.
You're abstaining on that particular item.
Okay, so...
Which item is that?
That's being give me the municipal codes, and then it's talking about the RSU units.
Oh, okay. No, I'm thinking of the...
Oh, and then there's more.
The item 6C.
Oh, got it. Okay.
So on that one, when it comes to a vote, just note for the record that you're not voting on consent item 6C.
So I don't need to leave the room?
No.
No.
Okay. Just not vote on it?
Right.
Then can I have a motion regarding consent calendar items A, B, and C?
I'll make the motion that we approve consent items 6A, B, and C.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded. Can I have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Deuce?
Yes.
Jameson?
Yes.
Zimmerman?
Yes.
Mayor Richardson?
Yes. Conley?
Councilmember Toussaint?
Abstain? No?
You can vote yes on the consent item while noting that you're not voting on 6C. You're
Okay,
just
so I
voting
can
on-
say yes on A and B?
Yes.
Okay. Yes on A and B.
Okay, now with regard to consent calendar item 6D, I have to recuse myself because I live within 500 feet of the subject issue. So Mayor Pro Tem Ryan Toussaint is going to take care of the council, and you record me back when you're done with this, please. I'm afraid of that.
So I guess the first would be a staff report?
Yeah, I think Matt's going to get up and kind of clarify the extra area that
Sure.
under concern.
Good evening, council members. Matt Vanderlinden, your Public Works Director and City Engineer. So I think Christie Company is confusing a few different projects that she's been reading about. And I think that's what's kind of causing the confusion. But just to let you know, back in November, we sent out a letter, and our water staff hand-delivered the letters and set the letter on every single person's doorstep within the Creekside subdivision to notify them about the project. We gave just a very brief overview of the project and inform them of a community meeting we were going to be holding at the well site. That meeting was held, I think it was in early December. And so we met out at the well site. Any neighbor that was interested in being there was there. We had about 7 people that showed up. We explained the project in more detail. We paced out the actual dimensions of the project. One of the residents had actually gone over to our new HCA South well and taken a look at that well site to get an idea of the magnitude and size of the facility. So unfortunately, as Christie Company mentioned, somehow they didn't get the letter, and they weren't able to make the first community meeting. So all along we had intended to have 2 community meetings. The second community meeting was intended to focus on the aesthetics of the site with the neighbors that lived, that could actually see the site. And so we had that second community meeting. Actually, we held that meeting here at our Public Works conference room. And Christy and her husband Paul Company were at that meeting, along with a few of the other neighbors that live like right next door or right across the street from the well site. So I tried to answer all their questions. The meeting lasted about an hour and a half. They had numerous questions. I told them if they have any other questions, and in the letter that we sent out, if they have any questions, they can call at any time and talk to me. We're happy to talk to them and explain everything. But she mentioned about the treatment equipment and things like that. Well, I wanted to clarify a few things. Number one, that well has never been identified as toxic, ever. That's completely wrong. So I just want to totally clarify that. Never been identified as toxic. Okay, that's ridiculous. We wouldn't be putting a well into service if it was identified as toxic. So it was identified as having a problem with hydrogen sulfide, the H2S. That's it's not a health issue. It's actually a secondary standard that the state has, that it's an aesthetic taste and odor problem. And so it doesn't pose any health risk, but there had been a problem with H2S in the past. So as you might recall, when we drilled the 5 wells 3 years ago, when we drilled well 23, so she thought the other well was well 21, but it's well 23, which is at the north end of Sunnyfields Park. When we drilled that well, after extensive pump testing, we found that it was producing a slight H2S odor. So our hydrogeologist, he's been dealing with this problem extensively all through the San Ynez Valley, where wells have this problem with a little bit of H2S. So he had a theory that the H2S was coming from the interface between the bedrock and the lowest pervious layer. And so what he recommended was that we seal off the bottom, I think on well 23 it was about the bottom 120 feet, something like that. And we did that, and we re-pump tested it and found that the H2S was gone. We retested the water quality. The water quality improved. And so the staff asked them, hey, we've had this similar problem with well 22. Could we do a plug at the bottom of the well of well 22, just like we now just did on well 23, and would that improve the water quality? And he felt that it would. We installed a 90-foot plug. We completely sealed off the bottom 90 feet of the well, and we re-pump tested it, we water quality tested it, and it came back perfectly fine, met all the health standards, and was perfectly good. So after all that, doing all our due diligence, it was after that that staff brought a couple different reports back to City Council and recommended, we presented this as an option to move forward with well 22. And we're proceeding now based on City Council direction to move forward with well 22. But also, after we had installed the plugs in the bottom of those 2 wells, we, and before we actually brought it to City Council, we did a little study looking at the water quality. Well 23 still had minor water quality issues. It did improve significantly in putting that plug, but it still had minor water quality issues. So we looked at the water quality from both wells, 22 and 23, because they're in close proximity to each other. And we said, could we blend the water from those 2 wells, well 22 and 23, and meet the water quality standards? And so our consultant did a little study. We looked at how we could blend the water, what facilities would be needed, and their technical memo reviewing all this recommended that that if the city wanted to pursue this, that we do it in phases. The first phase would be just put well 22, upgrade it, and put it in service, because that well meets all the water quality regulations. Then the second phase would be to upgrade well 23, or install the wellhead facilities. The well's been drilled in the ground with a casing and a wellhead, but it doesn't have all the piping and everything. Put that well into service and use it initially for irrigation of the Sunnyfields Park, and do that over about a 1-year period, and we could monitor the water quality. And if it looks like the blending would still work based on that performance data, then we would run a pipeline from well 23 to well 22, and staff has secured an easement through the side yard of a home in the Creekside subdivision for running the pipeline. We could run the pipe from well 23 over to well 22, blend the water, and put it into the system. Now, the thing of it is, we know that government regulations, water quality regulations change frequently over time, and groundwater quality can change over time. So, so we're trying to be as wise as we can, be as cautious and careful with spending the city's money as we can. And so we know that for sure we'll have to blend 22 and 23 in the future if we want to use 23. But there may be need for future treatment at that site. And additional treatment, nothing to do with H2S, although if the H2S for some reason increased in the future, we could then install treatment equipment for that. But that's not actually the constituent we're most concerned about. But, so with the engineering and environmental work that we're doing for well 22, the Creekside well, right now, we laid out the site to provide for the piping and the disinfection facilities. So that's just chloramines we use as a disinfectant. We use that on all city wells. The state uses that in the State Water Project, and CCWA uses that at their water treatment plant. So, so we have disinfection facilities proposed and the wellhead improvements. So we know that in the future, if we need to blend or do additional treatment, we would need approximately a certain amount of area. So in developing the site at this time, staff was pursuing enclosing, doing the grading work and enclosing the site to allow for that future treatment equipment, should we need it. So the logic behind that is we wanted to minimize costs now, and also eliminate future disruption. So if we have to go back in the future and tear down a wall, a nice block wall and a bunch of landscaping that we'll be installing to address the neighbors' concerns for aesthetics, if we have to tear all that down to enlarge the site, that's just adding cost and complication and disruption to the site in the future. So we felt it was best to develop the full site that we think we'll need, and enclose that full area within the fencing. So the piping for the blending of well 22 and 23, we're not planning to install that right now. That would come with a later phase if the city council chooses to do that. But that would take about 20% of the extra area that we're proposing to fence in. The other 80% of this extra area would be for future treatment equipment if needed. So we felt, again, with constructing a wall and installing the landscaping and everything and laying out the piping and all that, it just makes more sense and is more cost effective to just enclose the whole area needed, that potentially could be needed, and put the wall around that whole area and landscape it. And so what Christie is basically concerned about is that there's this area that's just going to be proposed to be enclosed within the fence for future treatment. And it's unknown what that might be, because we don't know how the water quality may change over time, or how the government, federal water quality regulations may change. So, but we do know that, approximate dimensions of typical wellhead treatment systems for treating a variety of different constituents. And so based on that, we've sized the site to accommodate that possible future, need. So that's, so I believe what she's really asking is, can the wall be brought in and just enclose the area only needed for the current facility, and not enclose that extra area that's being provided for possible future treatment? And certainly that can be done. We don't recommend that. It'll add cost in the future if we do have to expand the site, and it'll create all that much disruption again. And we'll be tearing out nice facilities that we just put in now, the nice wall and all these the landscaping, the oak trees and everything that we're going to plant. They'll be mature, and now you're going to just tear all that out when we went to all this effort to try to screen the site and everything. So it just didn't make sense. But I believe that's what they're asking for, or what, and she can correct me if I'm wrong. But but anyway, I think in reading, trying to understand it, instead of coming to me and having a meeting, I got an email this morning when I came in that she sent last night, and I spent about 45 minutes trying to give her a lengthy answer. But you can't explain 5 years of multiple different projects and studies and everything in a brief, relatively brief email. So I did call her and let her know that I'm happy to meet with her and her husband or any of the neighbors again, explain all of this to them again, answer any questions they have. There's no attempt to hide anything or be misleading or deceitful in any way. We're just, the staff is just trying to do what's best, what we feel is best for the city based on the council direction that we've been given already. So, so that's probably more than, longer answer than you wanted it.
I guess we'll bring that back for questions.
Hey, Matt, just out of curiosity, I've talked about softening. Could that be part of some of the treatment equipment that could be behind that fence?
Yes, that is correct. I forgot to mention that. Thank you. So as you're aware, the City Council directed staff to start this water softening, wellhead water softening study, and that's also potential equipment that would go in that fenced area that we're trying to enclose and screen with the nice decorative wall and landscaping. So but those are things that's still unknown yet. How that might turn out and what direction staff might get from City Council, but that's definitely something that could be in there.
Thanks, Matt.
So am I understanding correctly that there's going to be a generator on site?
No, there's not. Yeah, so that's part of the confusion. In the city's 10-year capital plan, there's recommendation for purchasing an additional emergency generator. The actual location of that is proposed for the State Water Pump Station. So right now, along LSL Road here, so the generator is proposed to go at that site because that's like one of our critical sites. We do have 2 portable trailer-mounted emergency generators, and they can be moved from site to site. All of our wells, all of our new wells are equipped with a special connection where a giant plug from the generator so we can, haul the generator over there, park it temporarily, fire it up, plug it in, and power and run the well in case of a power outage. So the generator that she mentioned and that's in our 10-year plan has nothing to do with well 22, and it's not intended for that site or anything. So,
are there any other items that would generate noise or aesthetic detriment to the community?
Well, we did discuss noise and odors. Those were 2 of the concerns that the residents had. There are no odors. You can go to any of our well sites and observe that. We disinfect with chlorine and aqueous ammonia to create chloramines. That's all contained in special containers and inside shelters. So there's no odors. It's not a very odorous, those aren't odorous substances in particular, but there's no odors that are generated. So we addressed that concern. The other concern was noise. So the well is utilizing a submersible motor. So the motor is actually going to be 200 feet down below the ground surface, down the well. One concern they brought up is one of the residents visited the HTA South well, and there's a small fan in the electrical cabinet to cool the equipment. One of the residents noticed that fan could be heard by a distance away. And so we told them and committed to incorporating any kind of sound attenuation to block the noise, any potential noise from a fan. But at this point, a small fan operating to cool the electrical equipment is the only noise source that we've identified as of concern, and staff has committed to take care of that. And that the cost to address that is pretty minor, so it's not really something we feel we can promise to them that we're going to.
Is there any other future equipment you foresee putting there that could cause noise or odor or future detriment? Like aesthetically, or you're kind of talked about like a little bit of extra space there for potential future
treatment equipment.
Yeah.
Right. So until we know what the treatment is, it's a lot of treatment requires use of different chemicals and has various little pumps and things that operate to move water around. So one of the things is we're proposing a nice block wall with landscaping. So that would screen everything. But if there was anything that was, now, of course, we'd have to go through a whole environmental process if there's new treatment equipment going to be proposed. So, and if noise is identified as a potential issue, we would address it. But
Yeah, I wanted to reiterate that although if this is approved, this mitigated negative declaration will state that the visual impacts have been mitigated. It doesn't approve these unknown future things. Those would all be projects under CEQA and would have to be reviewed at the time, and then based upon what they actually do, potentially including if some structure that had to be built was going to poke up above the wall, that's no longer attenuated visually, so you'd have to address that visual impact. But any impacts of any future project would have to be addressed. The approval of this site isn't going to be an approval of any of the unknown potential future things that we may or may not have to do.
Got it. I think my main concern is just if there's going to be a generator going there and we got, I don't know, interval testing on the generator, it's generating pollution, noise, sound.
Right, there's
none of that's going to be going on here.
The only time a generator would ever be at that site is during a major emergency where there's a citywide power outage and water supply cannot be provided to the community for their health and safety without bringing our portable generator over there, firing it up and plugging it in for a short duration while the power is out to provide water for firefighting and for life, for the residents to drink and the businesses to operate. So that would be the only time ever where there's a generator there.
Got it. Any other questions?
Just a real quick comment, and I think we've seen this happen recently with chromium-6, and state completely changed in the ball game on the levels. We have no idea what the future holds, none whatsoever, and all we can do is play by the game of today, but hopefully do some smart planning. So if we have to do things in the future that are totally unforeseen, that we're not ripping up what we've done today.
Just for clarification, how large is this enclosure going to be?
Yeah, so the site is, I don't have the exact dimensions, but it's about 55 feet by, I think, 85 to 90 feet. So it's a large area.
Is there any kind of a picture showing kind of a rough of what that's going to look like?
But there's no picture of the actual, what it's gonna look like. There's a map and that's it. I asked for a model or a picture, is that what you're asking?
Just like I don't know if there's
The schematic?
just a picture showing kind of the area and how big of a footprint this is going to have.
Yeah, it's further back.
Further back?
Yeah. That's not the staff report that you're looking at. Yeah, so in the second meeting that we had that Paul and Christy company were able to come to, we had a site plan. I shaded in with colored pencils to highlight the wall and the landscaping. It was just schematic, but it was an accurate layout of the site. And what we committed was to accommodate whatever color block wall they wanted. We agreed to go with split face block instead of the slump stone block, which is more expensive. And we agreed to whatever landscaping and screening they'd like. We recommended a few different plants. They seemed to agree with the different trees and bushes that we were proposing. And we are in the process of creating a landscaping plan. So that's not finished yet, but I was planning to provide that to them.
Is this the picture?
Yeah, that's correct. That's what.
So Christy, is this your house? Okay.
Far, let me check.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
on
And
the
our
lower,
street wasn't
lower
even
left.
made in this report. It's kind of- Our house is, that's rebuilt, our house is all right here, so this is, yeah, my kitchen, my dining room, right there.
Okay, so freshly remodeled home, it looks like. Okay.
And they didn't even mention colding in there on their report. It's all rebuilt.
Any other questions? So I guess I take it to the public now. Comment? Would you guys like to start?
My name is Paul Company. I'm Christy's husband, and I'd like to start off by saying Matt has been wonderful. We do not mean to imply that he's doing anything other than trying to do the best for the city and for our neighborhood. I mentioned that, he thinks there's accusations. There aren't. We just want information, and we found it difficult to find that information. I walk my dog every day around my entire neighborhood, and I've spoke to 12 people. Of those 12, 8 also said never received a letter. So we're not the only ones that are saying we never received this letter. So whatever, if your goal is to notify, I think you need to maybe review your methods for notification because it's not working. All right, because out of a whole thing, if I already can identify 9 people that say they never even received it, that's not a good thing. Secondly, everyone that I spoke to, including our direct neighbors that are right adjacent to that well, who also attended the meeting, also agree, and they would like, and everyone that I asked this question to, if we can cut the size in half, would that be something that you're amenable to? Oh, absolutely. Everyone agrees that they would like to not, because the reserved part that they're doing for the future, it's half of the whole size. So if you were to put that extra area in, it would be half the size. And what makes it also that is that it's the mixing station. I also asked in our meeting, can that mixing station be placed at well 23 away from residential areas? That's the same question I asked everyone that I talked to in my neighborhood. They said, oh, absolutely. Let's get it out of residential. Let's put it by the park where it's a public and everyone's used to seeing facilities, utilities there. So if you move the mixing station to 23 instead of 22, because they have to be mixed together, 22 and 23, right? Everyone's happy. So my general comment is, if you're interested in what the residents of that neighborhood want, they want those two things. They want it half the size, and they want the pumping station moved to 23 out of residential. And if that's an option, I told them that I would ask in this meeting, what are our options? Is that an option, a viable option? And if not, why? And if so, can that happen? So, like I said, I'm more than willing to go, and I almost know everyone in my neighborhood. I'm more than willing to go and talk to every single one of them and ask them those questions. If these are options, do you think the city should take those options, right? Make it half the size, move the pumping station. Because you don't need it to be that size if the mixing station isn't there. It only has to be that size because the mixing station is there, right? If you mix the water at 23, it doesn't have to be that size. It can be half the size, right? So that's my feeling of what the residents in my neighborhood, the people that I spoke to, would prefer. So that's my comment on that. If that's possible, I don't know, but.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I just want to clarify, it's not just about the aesthetics and the wall and all these things. There's so many things involved with the equipment we don't know, like you brought up the salt water, the mixing station. And the reason why I brought up the generator in the first place is these are all pieces of equipment that were identified as to be part of the bigger plan later. And who's to say that you can't just decide to move it? Oh, well, it didn't work out here. Let's just put it there because we have the space. And this has happened throughout this whole project. Things that were supposed to be here, supposed to be there, they ended up over here. I understand that happens. So who's to say what we will end up given that, oh, we have this space, let's use it there. And my main concern is all the environmental impacts, even though you say, okay, we'll have another report, we'll do this and that. Once you have that block up and once you have that space, it's going to be a lot easier to put these things in that are going to be detrimental to our life, our property values, our health, and our overall quality of life, just given the noise. Some of these things that they're talking about, that I've read about, that they need to do because of the state, they're going to run 24 hours a day. Pressure pumps, all these kinds of things that aren't part of this, but could be. So, that's my main concern. It's, a lot is, how it looks. But the serious part is, what we're breathing, what we're listening to, taking our peace away. And that's not just for me, it's other people in the neighborhood. So I want that to be. And what can we do? Is this it? We just tell you how we feel and you walk away like, okay. No, I'm just, I'm really ignorant in this process, and forgive me. So do we just end up?
Roy, would you like to expand on that?
Yeah.
Well, I'm not in the habit of advising anyone but the city as to what their legal rights are. So, but this is on for action by the city council. So, there's no way for people to override a city council decision other than filing a lawsuit. And if I thought there was any grounds to file a lawsuit over the mitigated neg declaration, et cetera, on this thing, your staff would have known about that before they ever put it on the agenda. So.
Anything else, Christy?
Okay, so this was just information for us to come and talk about it?
Well, we're
Already
going to bring it back
decided
to discussion. So
Oh, okay.
we're going to talk about some
Okay.
of the concerns here.
Okay, thank you.
Matt, I'd like to find out a little bit about well 23.
Sure. Yeah, so
and what I really want to find out about that well 23. That's in that little triangle.
correct.
Just
So
right above the park.
Just to clarify, this question they asked in the last meeting, and I spent, a good 10, 15 minutes trying to explain it to them, but apparently I failed. Anyway, the blending station could be moved to well 23. However, that'll add $500,000 in cost, because you'd have to pipe the water from well 22 up quarter mile to well 23, blend it, take it back a quarter mile. So that's 2 pipelines instead of 1, if you follow what I'm saying. Because right now, you just take the untreated water, the raw water from well 23, if that ever happens, it gets piped
Because
down.
you're routing that way. That's your normal way to route, from 23 down to 22, rather than 22 up to 23 and then back down again.
Right, because
to
well
put it in the
23
dis-
is
to put it
outside of
into
our
distribution.
current distribution system. Well 22
Okay.
is right there next to our distribution
So
system.
you're kind of, 23 is kind of an end of the line.
No, it's way beyond the end of the
Yeah,
line.
well, it will be end of line when it all hooks up.
If and when. I mean,
Yeah.
but the point is, you'd have to have 2 pipelines, and you're
Right.
going to add about $500,000 in cost, which then, and as Councilman Toussaint has asked, what can we do to reduce water costs and water rates? So, we're trying to be really sensitive to that and listen to that in everything that we do and recommend to the council. So that's one thing. But if you did that, there's only enough room at well 23 to put the blending facility, because that's a pretty simple facility. It's just a bunch of piping and a static mixer, large static mixer to blend the water, and maybe like a meter, or a couple meters, water meters. But if you need wellhead treatment, there's not enough room at well 23 to fit wellhead treatment. The only location to fit that is at well 22. So it doesn't make sense to spend an extra $500,000, pipe the water up to 23, blend it, pipe it back to 22, and then have to add, if future treatment is required, add this big area. So
What were the dimensions of this, the footprint that's going in? It's like 85 feet by...
yeah, it's like 55 by 85 or 90 feet.
55, okay, so it's
Like a
rectangular?
rectangular shape, yeah.
Okay, and then when I'm looking here at the street here, is the rectangle running parallel to the street?
The rectangle runs more or less parallel to the street.
Okay, so that,
Standing at the street, the site is wider than it is deep, and that's
Right.
because there's a berm that was built when the subdivision went in behind the well site, and we don't want to get near or touch that.
so
That's
there's
the
no
berm-
sense to kind of rotating it to reduce the effect on the view there?
If we did that, we'd have to pull the front of the site right up to the street.
Got it.
And right now, we've set it back quite a bit to try to soften the whole appearance of everything. So
Mhm.
we set it as far back as we could, but then, in order to do that, you have to have the long dimension parallel to the street, because you can only go back so far because there's a big berm for like flood protection between Alamo Puntado Creek and Rebuild Colding. So,
Got it.
so we did look at that, but
So should we bring this back for discussion action?
Yeah, I'd like to make the motion to approve the certification and upgrade.
I'll second that.
One more question.
Is there any cost to postponing it one meeting? We're pumping nothing but state water right now. I haven't actually reviewed the site. I'd like to go through this a little bit more. Is there?
There's a motion on the floor.
So
Oh.
we have to vote.
Well, that my vote will be no then. So, roll call?
Councilmember Zimmerman,
Yes.
Deuce,
Yes.
Jameson,
Yes.
Toussaint.
No.
What'd you do?
You did great. You're in trouble.
Jim, he really did a good job.
Uh-oh, I better worry. Worry, Jim. Can I ask if there was a decision made? And can I get the vote?
The vote was 3 in favor and 1 opposed. Toussaint was
question was?
opposed. Well, it was the staff recommendation.
Oh, okay, thank you.
3-1-1.
And who, can I ask who the one was?
You should have listened.
I was too busy. Okay, we're on to the regular agenda, item number 7. Will you read the item, please?
Item 7, mid-year budget adjustments.
Staff report.
Good evening, Mayor Richardson, members of the City Council. Sandra Featherson, your Director of Administrative Services. I'm here to talk to you tonight about some recommendations for mid-year budget adjustments. During the course of the fiscal year, the city manager and the department heads and I review the city budget and determine how we're doing and try to make some projections and estimates on revenue and expenditures for the upcoming and the current fiscal year. At this time, we are proposing a few revenue adjustments to the general fund, one of which includes increasing the estimated revenue for the transit occupancy tax by $55,000. And then we're also decreasing some estimated revenue that we're planning in the Parks and Recreation Department by about $7,300. The reason for the decrease is partially because of the closure of Veterans Memorial Hall last summer due to the lead abatement painting project. Some of the programs didn't go as planned, and so they had a little less revenue. So based on that, we're decreasing that revenue. In terms of some expenditure adjustments, I've identified those in the staff report for the general fund, but just to highlight a few of those, we are increasing the budget in Parks and Rec for additional supplies. We've seen heavier use in some of the restrooms. We are increasing the budget for custodial services with the retirement of one of our city employees. We have been using a vendor, an outside vendor, for some custodial services, so we're increasing that budget cost. In the maintenance department, we had a failed air conditioning unit in our annex building, so we're increasing the estimated expenditures for that. And again, we're increasing the budgets for a couple of the restrooms due to increased usage. One of the highlights, though, is that we are decreasing the estimated budget for the lead abatement painting project at the Vets Memorial Hall, as you recall. That project did come in at less than expected, so we're reducing those expenses. In some of the other funds, we are creating a new budget for the Mission and Fifth Street Underground Utility District based on the scheduling for that project. In the water fund, we're increasing the budget for supplies and repairs due to some unexpected main breaks and leaks. Also, in the wastewater fund, as you know, we had that unexpected emergency repair that was quite costly, so we're increasing the budget for that. In the transit fund, we are increasing the budget for repairs and maintenance due to some work in the transit office. We are doing the short-range transit plan updates, so we're increasing the budget there. And we're decreasing the budget for the transit contract with the Roadrunner company due to some sharing of project manager costs. So overall, for the general fund, we're increasing the overall revenue. The net is about $675 to the general fund. And then in terms of the water fund, we're going to return an estimated $12,000 to the reserves. We are decreasing that budget I didn't mention in the water fund slightly for the purchase water cost. That has gone down based on some of our current projections. The wastewater fund is going to require the use of about $101,000, and again, that was for that unexpected repair and break that they had. And based on their fund balance on June 30, the wastewater fund will have enough money to cover those expenses. I've got some tables identified in the staff report that again just kind of highlight all the changes and the adjustments. And I'm available for any questions. The alternative there is that, you could choose to adopt or not adopt those at this time.
Are there any questions to the staff report? Seeing none, we'll go to that. Thank you, Sandra. We have one speaker slip from Tracy Farhad.
Tracy Farhad, Solvang CVB, and with me, my CFO for the Board of Directors, Susan Williams. And I want to thank publicly Susan for helping us. She's doing a full audit of all of our financial procedures, so I know that we speak with like mind on this. First, I want to say to Councilman Deuce, this is the first time I have ever appeared for a mid-year budget adjustment, so I just wanted to bring that up. We're here on behalf of the CVB Board of Directors to put in a request for additional funds during the mid-year budget adjustment in the amount of $6,000, and that is toward our sales program. As we showed in our mid-year presentation tonight, group sales have proven worthy of your investment. Specifically, the additional funds are needed to complete our fiscal year contract with our sales consultant, Mr. Greg Corso. After tightening our belt and cutting some costs, can speak to that. We still have the very sweet problem of having actually created more sales leads and subsequent relationships needing our attention. Therefore, we needed more of Greg's time. In order to keep the momentum going, we front-loaded the contract because you have to reply to the lead while it occurs. Part of what's key in getting business is how speedy your reply is. So you can't wait for just a Friday before you get back, or they choose somewhere else. That's how fast it can go. So we front-loaded the contract to go from 1 day to 1.5 days so that he could reply to this communication as needed. But at this new rate, his contract will expire the end of April instead of the end of June, where we had previously projected it to be. So the requested $6,000 would cover this expense. And of course, we're already working on putting that into next year's budget so that it will be covered going forward, because that's how important we feel it is. The board determined this is the best use of additional funds, so we are not forced to cut any current advertising programs. We don't want to do that. Sales efforts obviously bring more money into Solvang, and we remain, as always, a resource of revenue for the city, and respectfully request, even though I didn't hear there was any room whatsoever, the additional funds for the mid-year adjustment. Susan, I think that's, if you foresee any way possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any more public comment? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the council for discussion. Sandra, Can I jump out? You would like to go first?
I just was, oh, yeah, no, go ahead.
Yeah,
No,
go ahead, go ahead. Okay. What my question is that you saw a $55,000 surplus in revenue projections on the transit occupancy tax.
Correct.
And we supply the funds to the Visitors Bureau from those transit occupancy taxes. Yes? A certain percentage of, usually when we calculate that contribution.
It's all part of the general fund,
Yeah.
so.
So with that, I'm wondering if that's a sufficient surplus to grant them the $6,000.
Well-
I would certainly think that it would be a very
Put-
good investment.
I
I think it would be
I
a
want to
very
be
good investment.
party pooper.
Hmm?
Yeah, that's not on the agenda. You can direct us to put it on the next agenda, because it would require action on your part to both amend the contract between the city and the SCVB, which is not on the agenda tonight, and this type of issue isn't on the. The contract doesn't have a dollar value. Oh, okay, but this type of action isn't on the agenda. For instance, none of the grant recipients would have known to shown up and ask for a budget adjustment. This is basically the city's budget adjustments. But I reiterate, you can give us direction to put it on the agenda for the next council meeting, and you would be able to take action.
Okay, thank you.
And therefore, I would ask you to put it on for next council meeting, and if we can get some nods.
I'll second that.
You can't second it.
You can nod.
I was making sure that people are paying attention.
He doesn't understand the process.
Yeah.
When we don't really vote, we just go like this, or we
What
go
kind of
like
way-
this.
One request, and that is just that there's a clarification on what the increase is for and all.
Yeah, we can gather more information from the SCB.
Make a genuine staff report out of
Yeah.
it. Okay. All right, I think you see a consensus. Thank you.
Are,
Yeah, thank you, Sandra.
okay.
We got it. Seeing no other public comment, and we'll bring it back to the council for decision. We have to approve, that's the staff recommendation. I have a motion for the staff recommendation.
Okay, I'll make the motion for staff recommendation.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Nay. Passed 5-0. On to item number next, 8.
Item 8, discuss establishing a moratorium on the issuance of new Canon will serve letters and/or new water connections.
Staff report?
Mr. Mayor and members of the council, during your water supply update discussion back in last month, on January 9th, the council the concept came up of a temporary moratorium, and that was based on when we had a 2017 state water project allocation of 45%, and also the fact that our river wells were going to be going dry with no forecasted releases. Since that time, our allocation has gone up, increased to 60%. So at this time, the city staff is not desiring a temporary moratorium, as was mentioned in that previous staff report. But just to go some background on this, the council did discuss the possibility of establishing a moratorium on connections back in November of 2014. And at that time, the city attorney presented two different methods, one under Water Code 350 and one under Government Code 65858. And those are the two different methods. I'm not going to go through those two methods of moratoriums, but because they're included in your staff report, and also that staff is not recommending a moratorium at that time. But in essence, it's got to do with us not being able to meet our water needs, being in a stage 3 drought. I mean, there's certain parameters you want to hit before you deny those connections, and the one requires that it can be in place for 2 years, and then during that time frame, you would have to go and excuse me, and you would not be able to allow any further connections. So you'd be cautious if you were to direct staff to move forward with those types of moratoriums. In addition, the moratorium discussed the policy on our can and will serve letters, and that was done in February of 2015, and staff was directed to bring back an ordinance changing that to duration of those can and well serve letters from 90 to 180 days. And staff was also directed to utilize a standard of allowing individual projects of development that would have less than 3 acre-feet of annual use, with a total cumulative use of 40 acre-feet for all those projects, and that would be during our Stage 2 drought. Now, we have not gone before you with a change in that, but we have followed that direction since that time at staff when projects have come in. So that's sort of the background of that. As I said, we're up to 60% on our state water allocation. We feel we're going to have, even with the limited or the reduction in our carryover, we'll still have carryover water into 2018. And so I guess staff's asking if you would like us to bring that back, give us some direction as to what type of moratorium you may think would be appropriate, and we can do that with you. We did include the list of known projects that we included when we talked about this back in 2014. Some of those, a few of those have been constructed, not too many. I mean, the big key to that is the big discussion last time was about the vested subdivision that Skip Mason had, that vested right. And at this point, we're down to 3 lots that have not connected at Skip Mesa. So the vesting piece of that is not really as critical as it was back when we were looking at half of the property still not being built. So I guess staff is looking for direction on whether you'd like us to pursue a moratorium, but at this point, staff doesn't feel that we would need to do a temporary moratorium on water services. And that's my report.
Any question of staff report?
I just have a quick question for Roy. So because it lists these connection fees for some houses that are within close proximity to me, can I not vote on?
No, you can vote on this because that's, you aren't deciding on the individual projects. You're deciding on a moratorium that apply to the whole city.
Okay.
So you're okay.
Any other questions, staff? Then we'll take it to the public for public comment. I have no speaker slips. Does anyone wish to comment on this particular item? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the dais for decision. Is there any comments?
I move the recommendation of staff.
I'll second it.
Been moved and seconded. Are there any comments or discussion?
I just had a quick question. I was just wondering what this Lot 8 is on the, it says final parcel map approved, Lot 8.
There's 8 lots. It's an 8-lot subdivision at the end
8
of
lot,
Old.
okay.
Yeah, 8 was the number of lots.
Got it.
And that's the one at the end of Old Mission.
Got it. Oh, okay. Perfect. Okay.
Since it's been moved and seconded, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed 5-0.
Now might be a good time for a 5-minute break while I fiddle with the computer because I'm going to do a PowerPoint for the.
Oh, sure. Okay. We'll take a 5-minute break while we.
I love technical difficulties. They're so much fun. There we go. One of the first sections is just your overall code section on authority for prosecutions. There's been some changes in the law. They now allow cities to prosecute either as misdemeanors or infraction any municipal code violations. The reason for changing this to comply with this new law is that in the rare occasion where Solvang chooses to use the penal code process to get code compliance, if we charge infractions as opposed to misdemeanors, we don't run into the expense of jury trials. So we can save money that way. I will tell you, I think maybe once in 18 years we've done that, and there's a local attorney who's perfectly capable of doing it. He also does a lot of it for the city of Santa Maria, for instance. But it's not your Solvang method of choice when it comes to code compliance, but it is something that you should have in your quiver, and we should improve it this way. That's why I've recommended that one.
Is there an opportunity for council to decide to go infraction or misdemeanor on the?
You mean for the council to make that decision?
Yes.
On individual cases?
Yes.
No.
Thank you.
The way, and I started out in this business as code enforcement, so I had a red beard, brown hair, and no big gut, and I can tell you that once a prosecution starts, the city council doesn't have any discretion whatsoever. I had it was, if you know me, you know why I say fun. The fun experience one time, because I used to do a lot of code prosecute, hundreds and hundreds of cases, and I had a defendant come in once, and he laughed, and he said, I just talked to 2 council members, and they said this case is going to be dismissed. And I laughed, and I said, no, it's not, because they can't direct me. So, yeah, no, when it comes to administrative processes and civil process, the council can have some direction that they give to staff, but criminal code enforcement is, once it's chosen to go forward, it's entirely up to the prosecutor. Now, you can always fire the prosecutor, but that doesn't get the case dismissed. Yeah, but that's if we remember, Richard Nixon tried that. It didn't work out really well. I don't know how that one got. Okay. Here's another one. We have a section in on arrest warrants. I just recommend deleting that. State law governs warrants. There's no point in us having some kind of extra procedure on that, and that way we don't have to worry about, we can just worry about complying with state law and not worry about, see if that fits particularly with this code section. Under quorum, you notice in this one, it says resolutions granting franchises require at least 3 affirmative votes. Well, under state law now, all resolutions require 3 affirmative votes. So if you only had 3 members present and you have a quorum so you can conduct business, but of 2-to-1 vote on a resolution, technically by state law that fails, and so I'm recommending that we make our code comport with that, just so we don't end up with any confusion. Did you want to see that?
Yeah, clarify that for me, that if we have a quorum of
Yes.
3, and under certain circumstances, all 3 on the quorum have to vote.
Under most every circumstance. Technically, some things are done by motion or what we call minute order. And I'll give you an example. For instance, if you were just going to give direction to staff on something, you could do that by minute order. If you're going to discuss your own procedures, you could do that by motion, overrule the chair on some item. Everything else you do is generally by ordinance or resolution or payment of money. And all resolutions now require 3 votes.
So it can't be a majority of the 2 of the
Exactly.
Okay.
Oh, we have another weird one in there, which is that if an ordinance appears for first reading on the consent calendar, it shall be deemed approved and passed for second reading as read by title only if it's a unanimous vote. It's like, no, you don't really want to do that. You want to have the second reading. That's what state law requires for general law cities, and that's what your current code requires of you for your own ordinances. As a charter city, you can have your own rule. You can do this if you want to, but we've had more than one occasion in the last few years where in between first reading and second reading, the council came up with some policy improvements. And that saved us from having to redo a whole process. So I'm recommending that we make those changes. This is the poor clerk having to read by title. I would recommend that we take that out of the code. The mayor can still run the meeting and ask that things be read by title, but I don't think it should be in the code. That way, if we skip it, we don't have somebody arguing later. I've looked at the minutes from a year and a half ago, and the clerk didn't read by title something, and so let's take that out. Council member.
But you're not suggesting that she not read them?
No.
Because I think when you're sitting out there and you don't have an agenda, you don't know what in the heck's going on.
Right, the mayor and the council are still in charge of the meeting, so they should have her read everything they think should be read for a good meeting. I just don't think it should be in the code. Why create a potential trap door
Right.
if we don't need it? We have this anachronistic code section in our council member rules that says that the council members are supposed to avoid reference to character and indecorous language. And not only am I pretty darn sure that a guy who grew up in Berkeley doesn't know what indecorous language is, I do know that's not constitutionally enforceable, so we might as well take it out. I think you should avoid indecorous language, but I don't think we should have it in the code. This is just one, and frankly, I probably missed this 4 or 5 years ago when we switched over to Rosenberg's Rule of Orders. We have this one last remaining reference to Robert's Rules of Order and a subsection B. Let's take those both out. We don't have subsection B anymore, so I'm suggesting that we just change it to Rosenberg's and remove the reference to subsection B. We have a reference in our code that says basically nobody can put any salt from water softening devices that use the regeneration process into the sewer system. As we know from Matt's extensive review and the water softener issue, when it comes to residences, there's only certain things you can do. So what I'm recommending is that we modify this so it says non-residential uses are not allowed to put any salt in the system from regeneration processes, but that doesn't overrule the ordinance you adopted as far as residential uses go. So we want to maximize the restriction as to the commercial and industrial uses in town, but leave the legally mandated residential uses section intact. So I think now
I have a quick question there.
Yes, please.
With regard to, so you're saying that the residences could still put salt in the system through use of softeners?
Yes.
But
see, right now we have this code section that basically purports to read as if it applies to everybody.
Right.
It's been there for a long, long time. But by state law, we've never been able to enforce that against residences, only against businesses and industry.
So I guess my only question there is, do businesses, common like hotels, do they use soft water? And are we going to have a, no?
They don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just want to know if we're going to have a room filled of
No.
pissed
No.
off.
This would not, this rule's been in place for them for a long, long time.
Yeah,
So if any of them are surprised, then, oh my gosh.
Okay.
But,
thank you.
But it is inconsistent with your residential rules, and I'm just saying, let's make it consistent. So there can't be any confusion, and I don't have to say to somebody later, yeah, I know what it says, but it only applies to commercial industrial. So before we get on to these others, I think now would be a good time for you to just break those. If there's any of those kind of quick and easy changes that you don't think I should address, and that's really not a budgetary concern, it isn't going to take much time to get all of those done, now's a good time to tell me. And before you give me direction, you should see if there's public comment on those.
Is there any questions first of the staff report so far? Seeing none, then we'll take it to the audience for comment. Is there any audience? Fred?
Fred Coble. Yeah, well, I just missed on, are these all category 1 that we're talking about here, or did we get into a mix here?
These were all category 1.
Are these nice to have? Do we have to do them, or are they just convenience? In other words, are they mandatory that we make these changes?
That's a question that I can't answer.
Well, to be honest, I would say it's not mandatory, except that the expense is small, and I think having bad code sections is a bad idea. And so that's why I highly recommend that we fix these ones.
Okay, so category 2 is a little more severe, and category 3 is must be done, mandatory. Is that
When we
right?
get that far, we'll discuss that.
Well, I'm just trying to categorize what I'm facing into as a resident.
All right. Thanks, Fred. Is there anyone else who wishes to comment? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the council for discussion. Is everybody in favor of those?
Can we do a motion by categories?
Yes.
Or do you want us to? Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I move that we do the advisory changes as presented by the city attorney on category 1.
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passed 5-0.
Okay,
On to
I'm
category 2 now.
I'm not mirroring the staff report because that
okay.
that bores everybody except Fred.
Okay.
So what I have here is these are things that your staff has suggested, and these might take a little time. Number one, I just put it in bullet points this time instead of breaking it out just like in the staff report. We have an old reference to a parking district that was created to fund creation of parking spots that's been completely paid for, and it's not necessary anymore. We don't have a parking district like that. And yes.
What about maintenance of the parking district? Can't do that? Can't use those funds?
We haven't historically.
Yeah.
We just use our general fund funds.
And this is not an AB 1600 thing, so it's a completely different type of code animal from way back when. Nowadays, and I haven't spent time researching it, let's say we did want to create another parking district, we'd have to take a look at the exact language in the old code sections for this parking district. Some old districts have survived Prop 218, many have not. So it might be that for a parking district nowadays, even if we called it a parking district, it would have to be more akin to an assessment district under Prop 218, and you'd have to follow all those processes for assessments and do an assessment report, et cetera. That's also separate from AB 1600 impact fees that people pay into to help create future parking. Those would remain intact. This is just a parking district that was created decades ago that fulfilled its function and got the parking lot created.
So was it a specific parking lot?
No, it was a parking district, so they contributed based on their, I guess, number of stalls that would have been created by their business. But we, most of that.
The assessment then.
Yeah, the assessment, well, this was all before me. I believe it was set up based on each, if you had a 10,000 square foot commercial business, they calculated how many parking stalls that was. The numbers were laid out of it, and that was your portion of the assessment that helped construct.
And so those have all been paid.
Yeah.
So does that mean that businesses do not have to pay a parking assessment fee anymore?
No, they
Not
don't.
from that district. There are still people, the in lieu fee is a whole different, and that's still in the code. So a lot of this that was in the parking district section has been moved into the zoning section. The parking minimum requirements have been moved into the zoning requirement section. So a lot of it's duplicative elsewhere in the code, but it wouldn't affect the AB 1600 or the in lieu parking that someone pays.
So what do we do with the in lieu fees?
Those are all sitting in in lieu fund for the next purchase and construction of a parking lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that would remain intact.
So we have a pot of money there that's
Yes.
not doing anything except hopefully earning some money.
Some little money.
How, okay.
Your emergency services section in the code was passed many, many moons ago, and state law has changed significantly. You have a perfectly responsible emergency response plan. That's what you will actually follow. So I'm recommending that we spend some time either removing the emergency services section or changing it to make it work with the actual emergency response plan that you have that is compliant with the current state of federal and state law. There's a chapter in there regarding sales and use taxes. This is all governed by state law. I don't know why we would want to have it in the code. It doesn't, again, it's just one of those potential trapdoors that doesn't add anything for us, but that would take some time in the future to address. It's not something could simply be done with the rest of them. I've just noticed this for a long time. You have Title 4, Chapter 3 on handgun sales. That's purely a policy issue. I thought I'd bring that up because City Council's in charge of policy, not staff. If that's something you wanted us to address, we could. You may also decide that if it's not broken, don't fix it. You don't want your staff spending time on that instead of something else. That would be completely up to you. Some of your staff has noticed that, especially in today's world, the current way we describe late payments in the water and sewer code is causing some potential friction with people who feel that they've paid on time, and they'd like the opportunity to address that to make it work better for staff and your public that we're serving. And then lastly, and we don't have to do these in any particular order, I just wanted to mention, we had some prior discussion on the Airbnb issues. We don't have anything in our code that specifically addresses that. We do know that the state is going to make us address accessory dwelling units, both attached and detached. It would make sense to kind of look at those kind of all at the same time, I think, from a planning perspective, because they tangentially affect each other a little bit. We also are going to be required to address cottage food industries. That's a state mandate. So those are on. You can tell us that you don't want us to do anything about Airbnb, but your staff is going to, in the next year, have to address accessory dwelling units and cottage food industries. But now would also be a time you could tell us if you already have any thoughts about that. So that's the end of my presentation.
I have a question about the residential second units.
Yes.
We are out of compliance now, is that correct?
I wouldn't say we're out of compliance. Everyone
Or
was
not
gonna-
in compliance?
Well, everyone's going to have to, well, first of all, I always hate to do the charter city thing, but although this likely would be determined to be something of statewide significance, so I do think it's something we'll have to come into compliance with. It's not a situation where we don't have an ordinance in place, something bad's going to happen. It does mean we have to address it.
I read someplace at Charter Cities it doesn't make any difference, we still have to comply.
Well, I know, they say that all the time.
Okay.
And sometimes they're right, sometimes they're wrong. In this case, I'd recommend comporting ourselves with the recent changes in the law, but we're going to have the same issues everybody else is, which is some of the statutes that the legislature have passed are not inherently consistent with other statutes that they've passed. So
Well, it's a huge drastic change,
Yes.
as I read it.
it is a huge
Huge.
drastic change. And we need to take time to make sure we do it right for Solvang and still comply. But it's not like the state's going to come down and say, oh my God, you're out of compliance, something bad's going to happen.
But what do we do with people that come in and want to do these projects within their home? That is legally, they can do that now, according to the state. They
Yeah, I
want
think
to
what the s-
dedicate part of their
Yeah.
house.
Yeah, I think what the state is telling us is that we have to change our codes, not that we have to let everybody do it right this minute. I don't know that we have, I don't think we have any pending applications along that regard.
But when people find out about it, they might want to
Yeah,
do it,
it's
because
possible.
it's simplified the whole process, and the requirements are much less,
Yes,
and the size is different.
yes.
And heck, I'm going to do it over my garage. Just kidding. So I think that is a really important issue, and I think we should jump on it right away. I don't want somebody to be able to come in and, because the state says they can, just go ahead and think they can do it. I think we need to define what we are going to allow to happen.
I see 3 or more nods.
I'm nodding yes.
Yeah,
I'm
so, I think staff understands the council direction in that regard.
Have we had an issue with cottage food industries in town at all?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
No, I think there's been one application.
An application?
For cheese, I believe it was. With cheese. Oh, brownies, sorry. I
Brownies?
had my food,
Where?
had my food mixed up.
Brownies.
Does this involve, we have a moratorium on
On that?
marijuana products at this point.
Would the cottage food industries have health, safety rules and those kinds of things?
Oh, yes.
Are they, do we have that now?
The county and, the state and the county do the health and safety rules for all your food industries.
That
yes.
includes our city, within our city limits?
Yes.
Okay. So it's not a rush thing to get put aside. Does that include alcohol sales in any way?
No.
Just food?
That's a whole separate other thing. You can brew for your home consumption beer at home.
Yes.
But not for sale.
Okay.
I got a question on the handgun thing. How much jurisdiction does the city have on, like, issuing carry permits and?
None.
Yeah, this is on sales, and we actually do have 2 permits within the city for sales.
Okay.
But yeah, we don't
So there's
don't
no
issue
real-
carry
yeah.
permits or any of that.
Sheriff
No,
determines
the
that.
sheriff, you have a contract with the
County.
sheriff, so the sheriff would issue those. And that's as long as the sheriff complies with the Constitution, that's at the sheriff's discretion.
Right. Okay.
So now, we moved Category 1.
Yes.
Is there any other changes you need a vote on?
Well, we need direction on, we've already gotten direction on the accessory dwelling units.
Right.
And so we need direction on any of these others, of these last 2 slides.
Would you put that slide back up? Is there any question on these particular items that we need to either not do or do? Do we want to allow a complete review of those particular items as recommended by the attorney?
An estimate of time? Cost?
I think that the parking districts, the sales and use tax, and the water and sewer code late payments are negligible
Okay.
in terms of time. And by that, I'm including your staff time. I'm not just thinking of attorney time, because your staff time is valuable too. I think that the emergency services would take a little bit of your staff time, because you'd want your ordinances over these last 18 years, and I don't mean this as a criticism of myself, your ordinances over the last 18 years are better when they're more organic with your staff working on them in their areas of expertise with my help, as opposed to me drafting something that looks good to me and then presenting it to the city council. So your emergency services would take some staff time from the people who actually deal with providing emergency services. My part's really easy.
Have a plan, don't
Yes,
we?
you have a plan. So you'd want to have someone who understands the plan, take a look at the code, and decide, as in between for recommendation, do we want to just get rid of the code and just have the code reference the emergency plan? Which would,
Sounds easy.
well, that's your attorney's approach that he always leans to, but
Yeah,
I might break something that didn't need to be
I guess
broken.
the author of the emergency plan is sitting right here, but I did not do that. I don't recall looking at this chapter and seeing how it aligned. I was more focused on making sure our emergency plan met the state requirement. And so I guess I didn't overlay those two. I don't think that would be a huge endeavor.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
because I'm still very familiar with the
Okay.
plan, having spent all that time
And then
writing
the
it.
handgun is the only other one.
And really, we'd have to just bring that back first for a big policy discussion.
Yeah, it's very minor. We've had one sales permit that's been in place since I've been here for a guy who sells mainly to the law enforcement in town. And then we just got one when the I'll say pawn shop, but this little shop
Right.
down by Nielsen's Market there, they trying to think of the name of his shop, but they have a permit to sell there also. And to be honest, I don't issue a sales permit unless they've got the federal, state, all those other permits. They show me all of that, and then we issue them one to sell
Okay.
within the city, so.
What are the proposed water and sewer code late payments?
Yeah, I'll let Sandra, that's really an issue
hate to
with our
misspeak it.
staff, and it comes up, we've been through this several iterations on the language that we put on the bill, but Sandra can go through it more and what people interpret that to say.
The bills are due upon receipt, as according to the code, but they're late after the 25th of the month. And so on the 26th, we try to give a grace period so we get all the bills out of the box. We look at all the payments that have come in online overnight, and then they run, they update everybody's account, and then they run the penalty process. And so people get on the shut-off list, if you will. And so lately, our staff has noticed a few more customers being disgruntled with the process in general and being late on the bill, and just a little bit more hostile behavior. And we were having this problem before with the disconnects, which means, after the 25th, they get the late penalty. Then they get 10 days to pay. And if they don't pay at that point in time, then their water is disconnected. And so we updated that language at one point in time to say that once we process those disconnects and the water staff goes out to shut off the water, that's it. Because otherwise we were getting a lot of arguments, if you will, from the customers about, well, they haven't gone out, they haven't actually turned the water off, and the water staff could be, 5 minutes away from the property about ready to turn it off, and they'd be like, no, I've already paid. And so a lot of back and forth on that. Once we said, once the staff leaves the office, you are being disconnected, and that kind of put an end to a lot of the back and forth combative behavior at the front counter. And so we were hoping to clean this up a little bit, because we have people that say, well, it was in the box. You didn't get it in time. You didn't process it in time. And our staff, and sometimes we send 2 people out there to look in the box in the morning to make sure those payments are in on the morning of the 26th. And so one option, we've talked about, do we move it back to 10 p.m. at night and then we close the box, or, at 5 p.m. because they can still pay online. So we want to try and work with other agencies to see what they're doing. If they've come up with a more effective practice, we may not be able to find a better solution, but we were just wanted the opportunity to evaluate how could we best communicate to the customers. We're trying to be as helpful as we can and give you as much leeway as we can, but at some point there is a cutoff time so that we can do our process as well and avoid some of that combative behavior at the counter.
Have you guys ever considered any kind of, I'm just trying to think from a customer standpoint, to better their experience and make them feel like we are working with them? Such as like a late fee forgiveness, 1 per year, 2, you do?
We already do that.
Okay.
And
Everybody gets one waiver of the late fee.
Okay.
Yeah, we try to work, believe me, we
Okay.
try to work with,
Oh.
'Cause that-
these tend to be people who are late every
Right,
month.
right.
So, yeah.
Because I've even had that too. I get busy, whatever else, I turn it in late, and I called in one time, hey, by chance, can you void the late fee? And they said, absolutely not, this is policy, you can't do it. So I don't know when that started happening, but that was my experience there, so that's why I was asking about that.
We do allow that,
Okay.
where, it's a one-time waiver, I think, either once a year or once every 5 years. We try to look back on the customer's account, and we're flexible. I mean, if people contact us ahead of time and say, hey, we've got an issue this month, something happened or whatever, our staff will do a payment plan even and give people an extra time to pay. But what is happening lately, and I've asked the staff to kind of document, is it 3 or 4 customers? How many are we talking here, where the customers are really angry, of course, as you would be if your water was about to be shut off or you got a late fee. But at some point we have to say, you know what, here's the city code. It wasn't here by 10 p.m. The credit cards get processed by midnight. We look at everything the next morning, and I'm sorry, but your payment is late. We can work with you going forward. We do try really hard to be accommodating. My staff knows that customer service is very important to me. I wouldn't want to be out there with water shut off. Believe me, I know what it's like for a lot of these customers who are, in fact, repeat customers. But I also want to give my staff some language that they can point to tell the customers that says, you know what, we've done everything we can, but your payment is really late. It has to be in the box by 5 p.m., or we lock the box, something, because we're constantly getting these arguments with the customers, well, I shoved it under the door, or, you know, it was in the box and you just didn't find it, or it was postmarked, you know, 3 days later, and, well, the bank said it was gonna get there. So we've just had a lot of discrepancies that we're
But
trying to
you're
avoid.
keeping track of that now, so you can try to figure out what the most complaints are about and figure out
We know,
how to slowly, I don't know.
yeah,
make
they're
that a little
late,
better.
you know?
Yeah.
So what
And
is the
we're
s-
trying to work with them,
What is
but
the solution you're looking for?
I'm not sure yet. We're gonna look and work, like I said, we're talking to some other agencies to figure out what other customer or municipalities are doing in the same situation to maybe avoid some of these confrontations.
When you send in employees out to check the box,
Yes.
at that time, could you shut the box off so that no more deposits could be accepted, that if they want to, they'd have to come into
We
the...
actually try that. We have a sign and they'd like duct tape it around that says, you know, please do not put any more deposits in the box. We've already processed them. You need to come inside.
But we're looking at a new box that we could actually physically lock.
Lock it,
Because, you know, it's happening enough that people are saying they put it in there, and, you know, we're gonna say the box is locked. You couldn't have put it in there. So, I
And
mean,
leave it locked for a day and then open it up.
well,
you know.
it's, yeah, through the time. But
Well-
believe me, they check that box. I mean, the girls work very hard at this. I listen. I can hear pretty much all of it from my office. So I hear quite a few of the customer comments, shall we say. And so we do try our best, but it can be quite frustrating for staff.
So if you were to lock the box, what would the hours be that it would be locked?
Well, again, you know, one option would be to do a 10 p.m. cutoff time that, you know, at 10 p.m., you know, but that'd be hard because we have, right, who's going to lock the box? So,
Yeah, but my point is, okay,
yeah.
there are people that want to make the payment, and I'm one of them. Well, I almost, you know, if somebody hadn't reminded me, I would have brought water payment to its second council meeting tonight in my briefcase and forgotten about it. But anyway, if your employment means that you can't be here between 8 to 5, that box is really important. Whether I'm late or not, I just want to make the thing go away.
Well, the other thing would be to lock the box at 8 a.m. in the morning. You know, like I
Yeah,
said, we do
that-
try and
that
give
would-
everybody a grace period.
I would go for that,
so
but
that-
I certainly wouldn't shut it off at night or.
Yeah, I know, I understand. We're just trying to come up with
Yeah.
some kind of solution. Like I said, I want to talk to some other agencies and find out what they've found is maybe working better than what we're doing. It's just we're trying to be able to provide some guidance to the customers and at the same time provide good customer service to them. Like I said, I wouldn't want to have my water turned off or be a late fee either, but we're just trying to.
What about working into the code, you know, a digital format, so a dedicated network for payment processing? You know, this stuff's so readily available and easy to develop now. You know, we could actually have our own platform in a sense, and it's strictly set up for water. So when so there's an option, but literally it's a quick click of a button, boom, it automatically transfers.
We have that. You can sign up for automatic, or you can there's
Right,
credit
customers
card. There's
have
3
several
different
ways to pay.
Yeah,
They can be bank drafted automatically. They can go online and pay. You know, we have on a link right on our website that to pay
I
online.
know, I'm just thinking like a text. I mean, I know it sounds kind of crazy, but like literally,
we do
a text,
we
boom,
do
and I
have
just
calls now,
press
right?
accept, and my bill's paid.
So we actually did go to that step. So on the shutoffs, they get an email. If they've signed up, they get an email. I don't know if we've done text, but we do. So we are trying all these different methods. But
Okay.
what happens is we still get into this argument of you didn't shut me off. I shouldn't have to pay that $30 connection fee or whatever it is. Those are the types of things. So I mean, it may not take a change to the code. I just think what we're asking is our staff is saying, does the council feel that staff should spend some time on trying to get this to be
I
the
think
best
we'll get more
operating?
adopters, you know, people adopting a super streamlined, light, user-friendly system, and then it won't be so cumbersome on the handful of people that are late when we don't have to deal with all the processing of everybody that's already adopted a true seamless system of, you know, digital format of paying it.
I guess my concern with that would be the people that tend to be running late. Are they people that would ever even use a system, or are these people that just, you know,
Well-
there's a lot of people in this valley that they want to pay check, and that is just, you're never going to get, you know.
That's very true, and we have a lot of customers.
Pay cash.
We have a lot of
Which is
customers who
fine,
pay
it's just
cash
working on
and,
this.
are, living
They
penny to
cash your
penny,
check at the
paycheck to
bank?
paycheck.
Yeah.
And so we try to be accommodating for them as well. I think the people who have used the technology, they're going online, they're paying online, or they're doing bank draft, or they're
Right.
doing automatic bill pay through their own bank. They can do that as well. And so typically not a question there. It's just, I think people who are, they're down to the wire and they're trying to make their payment right before the deadline. And we're trying to catch all those and get them all when we can. But the issue has really been surrounding the mailbox, frankly. It's like, well, I put it in the box and you didn't check it. And, we're checking it. But, I think the lockbox may be the best solution. And so the option was, we really just want to come back to you with we might have to change the code slightly to say, here's the deadline or whatnot. So.
Now, what if we extended the day by just one more business day, that they get to come in by 10 a.m. or something like that, and then the guy goes out and turns things off?
That's
One extra
Well,
hour?
there's two different processes we're talking about.
Okay.
One is the bill's due on the 25th, and if it's not, they get the penalty and they have 10 days to pay before they're turned off. So
Okay.
that's one process, is the late fee penalty being assessed. The second process is they have not paid now the penalty, they've gone their 10 days, and now they're about to be turned off. We send phone notifications to those folks, and so they are notified that they need to come in by a certain time if they want their water turned back on that day when the staff is still here. And we typically get everybody in on that day so that they don't have their water turned off the next day to pay. So
Right.
it's two separate processes.
Yeah. Well, I like the conversation because it's very constructive, but it's I know it's a hard one to deal with because even me, I'm a technology business. I can't get more than 5% of my customers to not pay me check if they live in the San Ynez Valley. So it's just kind of I've tried making this so I can totally understand the frustrations you're having, because I still have to mail out all invoices, everything.
So
The second
are-
I switch to email or anything electronic, you get complete rejection.
Are we having a problem where they've paid it, it's been processed, but someone's going to go out and shut it off, that's already in motion, and it literally is that time frame? Or is it that they haven't paid and there is definitely enough time? Or is there like this really small window that we're dealing with? Essentially, like, if it was processed today at 5 p.m., but the guy that's going to shut it off got his notification at 4, and he's going to go out the next morning and shut the water off, but it was actually processed? I mean, what is the
No,
actual?
The process, okay, so for the actual turning of the water off, what happens is, we give them their 10-day notice, we try to get everybody in to pay, and then we've got a handful of customers that get turned off. And so before we go out and turn those off, we process every payment, we look through every piece of mail we have, we go through every single customer and review them to see, do they need to be turned off? And then we try to do that. Our utility billing clerk is here at 7 in the morning, so she tries to get that done by 8:30, so that the water staff can then, at that point in time, go out and actually turn the customer off.
I see.
Yeah, so that's one process, and we fixed that. That one's working pretty well, and they understand now that once they're on the list, basically, there's no more discussion. They're getting the fee because they're on the list now. They've been disconnected. They have not paid. The other problem we're having is, well, I paid by the 25th. It was postmarked. My bank didn't send it, or my bank was supposed to process it, or you didn't check the credit cards, to make sure those have been processed. And we do all of that because our goal is to have as few unhappy customers as we can. So that's really the issue. Is now it's moved back to the actual when your payment is due and the debate over what time did it arrive.
So is it, again, just for my clarification, is it usually the same group of people?
Many times, yes.
Okay, so it isn't necessarily a system failure, it's a person failure.
Probably 80-20. I mean, it's hard to say.
So whatever you try to juggle around, that'll end up being a failure too, most likely, unless you just allow someone to continue on forever.
Well, and the thought was, again, to avoid some of these difficult arguments, as we could point to something in the city code that clearly said, your payment is due by 5 p.m. on the due date it's due, or you're going to be turned off.
So,
Or, assess the late.
if that's what you'd want, I would say set it up that would give you the firepower or ammunition or whatever you need.
That's what I think we're looking for to help kind of stop
to make
the
your job
arguments.
easy and just avoid the argument just by saying, look, it says right here, boom, boom.
That's kind of what we're looking for. And then we'll come back to you with maybe a few options that seem to be working or not working.
Do we need a motion?
No. And before you do any motions, you are going to want to have public comment.
Is there any questions more of the staff?
I just have a comment here. I received an email from Gay Infante about a tree ordinance that was supposed to be worked on. Holly? And she wanted to know if this was the time to bring it up, to have it placed in what's going on.
Roy, do we have something that pertained to that at this time?
We didn't have it on, but my last slide here was other policy issues not mentioned by staff.
Okay.
You would be able to give us direction as to, just as you could on any meeting, of something you might want on a future agenda. And so we did not have tree ordinance in our work plan that I'm aware of.
I know it's been suggested, and we did a little initial research on it, and then a lot of other things occurred, including trees and hedges that came to us in other forms. So we could certainly take a look at that. The other one that I was thinking about was the wireless telecommunications ordinance. We started drafting that, and we got something in shape, and then it's ready to be finalized and brought forward for your consideration. A lot of that has to do with wireless facilities in the public right of way. It's been a big issue around the state, so we may want to take a look at that one also. I would say that at this time, though, I would like to take a look at this accessory dwelling ordinance and where we go from here. It's pretty complicated. The problem was that there were
Do I need to leave the room?
No, sir, you're fine.
Yes.
Yeah.
If we're going to have any substantive discussion on accessory dwelling ordinances, I would have Councilmember Toussaint leave the room, and that's based upon our history here with the enforcement action that was taken by the FPC against Day Yeager. Day Yeager won. She had not violated the rules, but boy, did she go through a lot of pain to prove to the FPPC that they were full of baloney, and that involved addressing accessory units in hers, where she had a legal nonconforming accessory unit that predated incorporation. So, yeah, if we're going to have any substantive discussion of accessory dwelling units, we'll have to excuse Mr. Toussaint. So we would probably want to finish everything else up first.
But I think we've had direction that we want to move forward with that piece of it. Did we not?
I think so.
Yeah.
That was resolved.
Yes, I think we had more than 3 nods that was a high priority.
Yes.
I will say that it will take a fair amount of staff time. It's pretty complicated. There were 2 different bills that were passed simultaneously. There was a lot of conversation at the statewide level as to what a model ordinance would look like. So it will take some research and maybe a minor workshop. So, thank you.
And as to trees, with being the gray-haired guy, the last time we addressed trees, which is many years ago, it was really a painful process.
Don't we have a tree ordinance now? The city's responsible for street trees?
Well, we have a tree ordinance. We don't have a tree preservation ordinance, which I believe is what, and I think what Gay's talking about, was it in the planning department's work plan? There was something.
I remember.
Why don't you just take her email?
So
I remember.
Well, no,
that was-
I think this has come up before. It was with Arlene, but I'm losing it on my thing. But yeah, that's if you want to look at tree preservation, we definitely can bring forward something, put that into our plan. I mean, obviously, what we're saying is there's a lot of different things we can do. What would you like staff to concentrate on? What types of things? We've heard the accessory use. We've heard, all the category 1s. Is tree preservation something you want us to work on?
Prioritize something like that so we don't front load the process, stretch it out over time?
Yeah, I mean, it might even be better for staff to come back and kind of more dial this in with estimates of how much time it's going to take. I mean, I think Holly brought up a good point. If in fact that's a high priority, that's going to take some time. We probably aren't going to have time to do a bunch of the other planning-related things. So let us do that. I think we've got probably enough direction.
Well, we need to go to public comment.
But on the other pieces of it.
Go to.
I just want to bring up one other thing. And and Holly and I have spoken to Solvang School about this. It's the school district employee housing, and it's Senate Bill 1413. That's something maybe that we need to acknowledge or address somehow.
What is that?
It's a workforce housing
It's
for
workforce
schools.
housing, but this is specifically for school districts.
Explain that.
We've been approached by the school district to consider a proposal for teacher housing, workforce housing. There was a Senate Bill 1413 that was passed at the end of 2016 that allowed school districts around the state to tap into affordable housing funds. Ordinarily, what you have is affordable housing has their stream of funding, and the private sector has their their source of funding, and they don't all always mesh. But with the passage of this bill, it allowed the opportunity for school districts to apply for home grants, CDBG grants, with the idea that they would build rental housing for their district employees. That's how it's written at this point, anyway. And the city of Solvang, the school superintendent, expressed some interest. We've had a couple of preliminary meetings, and it has been determined that we would have the land use authority in that project. So we're going forward to see what role we can play and how we can support that. I just had a conversation with HCD today, who verified that it would indeed count towards our RENA numbers for our meeting our goals for providing housing of moderate income, or maybe it would even be considered low income, in this part of the state. I'm not sure. So that's good news. We're just at the beginning of this process, though, to try to research this. They do own the land, and it would be built on their land.
So. It'll be built on school district land?
Yes. Yes, it would.
Got to digest that one for a while.
They got an acre.
Yeah.
On the Elks Field, the back Elks Field. You might know that area.
So stay tuned to that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, can we go to the public then for comment? Fred?
Almost forgot what I wanted to talk about.
Thank you. Your 5 minutes are up. Thank you.
Yeah. I'm overwhelmed by this discussion of everything here that you've gone into such good depth, and I really appreciate it, especially when it reflects that you're for the residents of this city. And that's what really has stood out in my mind. Bent over backwards, and I haven't seen this in a long time, and I really applaud you for that. When we talk about this particular issue that's really been dwelt into, which is late payments, there's a real simple solution. Really simple. And it's take the person out of the conditions. You've all talked about this box outside here, when you look at it, when you don't look at it. Change the box, upgrade the box, and you could do it for minimal costs. You make a box there that has a camera in it. And when the person puts in his envelope, you just take a picture and timestamp it. And it's all over. Now you don't have to worry about ever locking the box. It's there 24/7, every day of the week, every day of the year. And it's over. And the technology is there. Heck, I use the technology in my home. I go to the Consumer Electronics Show in January, and I just go and I the first day I just say, hey, I want to buy this from you, and they don't want to take it back to China. It's a pain. So I get deals up front, and at 2 o'clock on the last day, I go around. I got my little business cards. I've got it written down what building and what number of their particular area, and boom, I'm right there, cash. Some I've paid up front on the first day, and they remember me. How can they forget? So the whole thing, is invest a couple $100 and get the job done, and then it makes Sandra's life so much easier. That's what it's all about. I pay online, easy money. Now, I have a beef, though, when you pay online. Because when I paid online back a few years ago, what? It was instant. You had it the next day. I don't know what you changed, whose data agent you were using, but you changed to somebody else, and now it's 5 days, and now my bank has to cut a check. What went wrong with the system? It used to be a direct transfer into the city's account. In fact, at one time, I got permission to transfer into the city's account directly. I got your account number as well as your routing number. And that worked for a couple of times until somebody said, well, we couldn't find it on time. No, I couldn't. Well, I tried. No, seriously. So that system needs to be looked into by Sandra. Why am I going through this situation here where they're cutting a check? Because they didn't used to have to. It's who handled the city's data. Well, it turned out Union Bank handles the data processing for a whole bunch of other banks. Something fell through the cracks. Okay.
It's called the float.
No, that's not the issue.
It makes money.
You want the float.
The float makes money for somebody. Yeah.
But it should be for you.
But, so Fred, is that delay that you're seeing though, is that credit card or is that checking or is that everything?
That's everything. Yeah. Anytime. No, it all has to do with, no, this is bank. This is from my
The
bank.
ACH. You do the ACH.
No, it's not. I'm not using your ACH.
Oh. What are you using?
I'm letting my bank pay the bill.
I do that
Well,
too.
then
I have no
The delay would
problem.
be from your bank. It's when your bank is paying the bill. That's what we find. People go to their.
No.
People go to their account, they think click the payment, and the bank takes 3 days to cut a check. But Sandra will explain that. I know we've had that
Yeah,
issue.
but
quite
we
a bit.
didn't. But 2 years ago, I didn't have that problem.
Yes, I can explain why.
Oh.
Okay. A few years ago, we found we had, when you go online and you use your bank to pay a bill, you go online and you tell that bank, I want to pay $40 to the city of Solvang and I want it to pay on this date. The bank turns around and they could pay us in 2 ways. One, they could send us an electronic file with that information, or they can send us a paper check. And a few years ago, we were finding out that the electronic file, they weren't collecting all the payments at the same time. So we'd get an electronic file and think we had all the payments for that day, only to then, like 3 or 4 days later, get a new electronic file from the bank with payments made 3 or 4 days prior. And so we were having trouble because we thought we'd have all the payments in time to make the late payment penalty or the shut-off. Wasn't working that way. So we went to those banks and we told them, you need to send us a paper check. Because the electronic file we were finding was unreliable in terms of what data it was containing and when the payments were made. Because we could get 3 or 4 electronic files from the bank, or we'd get one. And then when we went to go process and turn people off or assess the late payment, we thought we had everybody. And then 3 days later, a new file would come in and show that somebody had actually paid on time. So we found too many problems with that. We went back to the banks and said, no, from now on you need to send us a paper check. We notified all our customers. We made it very clear what was happening. And we told them, if you want to pay by a paper check or pay electronically using your own bank, you need to make sure you plan for 7 to 10 days for processing. Because those banks, once they get it, they are actually turning around and sending us a paper check. And if the customer doesn't put that account number on the check when they pay the bill, we have extra processing time to figure out who that check actually belongs to. So that's the problem we were having. We did not change any online credit card processors or anything. It was related to the file we were receiving from those banks when customers use their bank to pay us.
So I can understand your reconciliation nightmare there, but I'm just wondering, the the payments that you're talking about, are they, this is coming from a batch file from a portal that's processing these payments, or is this someone just logging in their own online banking and say, hey, just send a payment to the city of Solvang to pay my water bill?
That's
and then-
exactly what they were doing. They would go online and tell their own bank, like Gold Loan Credit Union, I want you to pay the city of Solvang $40. So that bank had the choice of whether or not to send us an electronic file, like a spreadsheet with everybody who'd paid and the amounts, or they would send us a paper check. And the people that were sending us the electronic files, we found problems with those because they would, say, well, this person paid on this date, and we think we had everybody's payment in by the 25th in order to assess who was late, when in fact we'd get a file 2 or 3 days later that showed somebody paid on the 24th.
Right.
Meanwhile, we'd already assessed them a late fee and had an unhappy customer because they said, hey, I went online and paid through my bank. So we were having multiple problems with that. And to
Yeah.
avoid that confusion, we asked those banks to pay us with a paper check. Not ideal in today's world, but it did solve a lot of reconciliation problems and headaches at that point in time.
Is there a way of tying in so that the portal kind of takes a timestamp of when? So if I guess there's two issues. One is, someone logs in their online banking and they say, okay, I got this $180 bill to pay the city of Solvang, send the check to them, and then it's just going out in the wind. They're hoping you guys receive it on time. And I can see that's a real problem there because you don't even know if the mail carrier is going to get it to you within a day or two or 2 months later. So there's that issue. But if we stopped accepting those kinds of payments and said if you want to make a essentially a check payment, you go through our online portal and you can put in your checking account and routing number and send that payment through. The system comes down with a timestamp right there, basically saying customer submitted payment at this time, and then you kind of get rid of the reconciliation nightmare there, because it's a nightmare when you go.
We have that option right now where customers can go online and pay and do the ACH, with their own bank from our portal, from municipal payments online. But we can't tell a customer that you can't use your own bank to pay us and send us a check. I mean, many people do online banking, so I can't turn around and tell them you can't use that to pay us.
Got it.
Have you heard of Venmo?
Pardon?
Venmo?
No.
Okay, so how you pay on with the check, essentially it's the same process, but we can actually have this whole thing networked out to where it's like literally I can send you in less than 1 second whatever amount I want, and it's like the easiest thing ever, and it's time stamped.
Does he use the ACH?
Yeah, initially to fund it. So you essentially be setting up an account with a.
It actually
ACH
puts.
transfer, right?
But it's not every single time. It's like a one-time submission into it, like a network type of a thing. And then from there, it's literally one click of a button, and the city can automatically send out the request for the payment, identify everybody. I mean, it's like automated essentially. And it's
Except
It's Venmo, but essentially what it's doing is, let's say I went out to dinner with somebody and we wanted to split the bill, and I paid with my credit card the entirety of the dinner, and the other person said, "Oh, I'll just Venmo you the rest." So then they take that balance, and they're going there.
we would revolutionise the city. It would blow everybody's mind. It's simple.
Yeah, and this reminds me, I need to check my Venmo balance because I think there's probably some stuff in there. I need to. But what happens is that person, let's say the dinner was $200, they send me $200, or $100 for their half. So I'll get a notification on my Venmo that I just received $100. That sits in the Venmo account until you go in there and wipe it out. The concern I have there, though, is again a reconciliation nightmare with, because there's a lot of staff time I can see that would go into sitting there coming from these different systems, and then trying to tie them all together. And I mean, it's bound that people are going to get all kinds of late payment fees that some legitimate, some not.
Well, that's
How much time
you
do
could
you
break it
spend
down
on
to
that?
a
I'm
check.
certainly willing to look at new technology, believe me. I'm one of the people who tries really hard. If there's something out there new that we can do it, we try. But there are some limitations because we are a public institution. I have to be very mindful of the systems we use. They have to be very vetted. And also, if it involves taking credit cards, they have to be very specific in terms of the payment card industry guidelines.
Well,
and
that's where I
things like
totally,
that.
I like Neil's suggestion there, but I don't see it solving the issue.
Right.
So I think it's
Some
more of a
things may not
process
work.
issue that we
It
need to
is.
address so that we can try to reduce the reconciliation effort that's going in and then increase the accuracy of,
Well,
you know-
honestly, the payment part is working just fine for us,
Okay.
because we have the payments coming in electronically. We have people paying by credit card online. We get those files. That's not a problem. The issue that Fred was talking about very specifically had to do with a bank paying us in an electronic file and was including payments days later that should have been payment on time. We
Got it.
resolved that by getting the paper checks. And the payment piece is
Because you
not the
can't control
issue.
the process of how they're, or when they're delivering, but you can
That's
say, okay,
correct.
send me a paper check.
Yeah, and we can say it's got to be postmarked by X date.
Mm-hmm,
So,
okay.
or in the box, whatever we decide.
Sure, Fred. Thank you, Sandra. This is, you only get one shot there, Fred.
No, the thing is, when the bank issues that check the next day, and it comes in late to you guys.
We have no control over that. Fred.
No, I understand that. No, but my question is, does the date on the check count, or the day, or when you got it count?
When we receive it.
Oh, it's when you receive it.
box issue too, yeah.
That's why we tell
But-
customers to take 7 to 10 days.
But if you do, just a quick, if you do receive a check, and let's say, you know, someone did that, they had the check mailed to you, and it's already gone past the late portion, but let's say you receive it the day after, do you guys take a look at when it was postmarked and say, okay, you know what, the bank actually did send it by this time, and we can understand the frustration the customer's having right now because they're thinking that it's going to take a day to get to us, but then, I don't know, the mail carrier delivered it a month later, or...
Got to
know,
ditch the system.
We look at everything on a case-by-case basis, believe me, and sometimes there are extenuating circumstances, and we do our best to accommodate those. But yes, we would waive the fee.
Okay.
Depending on the situation, but really, it's supposed to be in the office by the 25th.
Right, okay.
So.
On
And it's
my
due upon
situation,
receipt. Just a reminder, it is due upon receipt, which is when you get it. That's when it's due. So,
And
just to kind of back this up, in my situation, my check was written 2 days before the 25th. It was written on the 23rd because that was the council meeting night. I was going to drop it off. It stayed in my briefcase, just kind of like wandering around in a mail truck or whatever. It finally got in here on the 6th. Yeah, I'm going to get charged a penalty. But it's the same thing. It was in transit the whole damn time. It was really close a couple times, but it missed. So, you know, the date on the check doesn't count. It's when it shows up in that front
Correct.
desk somehow or another.
I think one good solution, which is the one that I finally come to about this whole thing, and that is if you check my account balance, there's actually there may be a 1 or 2 month credit on there. And so therefore, if I screw up, if it's in transit, whatever it is, you will never see that I have a late payment.
That is a good way.
Fred,
and a
I
good
suggest
option.
that one to you.
Actually, that would be kind of marvelous, in theory, I mean, really,
Oh, there is one thing, the Union Bank does guarantee a delivery date. They post that guaranteed delivery
Yeah.
date.
So does Bank of America. Yeah.
With that, the customer would then need to call Union Bank and get reimbursement for their City of Solvang late fee.
I think we've discussed this project ad infinitum. So thank you very much, Sandra. We'll bring this back to the council for additional instruction. And so have we nodded in agreement that all of our issues are going to be taken care of? Are you satisfied?
yeah, we'll bring back a little better work plan.
On
shall
the
we
ones
say.
that
Yeah.
involve your staff and work plan that might also affect other things that we know you already want staff working on, they'll come back to let you know what the work plan is as far as when we're going to get to things. The easy ones I'll take care of in due course here.
Okay. That's it with item 9. Item 10, council member reports. Is there any reports that somebody had water meetings?
We had a
ID1 ad hoc. Primarily a introduction, kind of retouch base with ID1, kind of just more information based, and they're interested in, possibilities of the merger, what that looks like, and, you know, or some type of further agreement that potentially we could work out essentially. So the next meeting will really define like where they stand, where we stand, kind of.
They described it to me at one time as being high-centered, like a truck high-centered, that you don't know which way it's going to come off the center. Is that where you are now? Or is there a leaning one way or the other to separation or merger?
As of right now, we're taking from the point of like, we got the same assessment from Bartle Wells or whatever, and, you know, it's actually up to what the council wants to direct us to do with what we have. So the good thing is we do have that kind of uniform consulting, which could be, you know, fair in a sense, if, you know, you call it that. So we are like one step closer to potentially furthering this merger.
Can you give us a recommendation, or you have got enough information to give us a recommendation yet?
I was even absent for a decent chunk of the meeting because I got double booked, and I had to go to a staff meeting with regard to wastewater. So I definitely did not have as much of a conversation beyond you know, having coffee and some general discussion.
Have you got another meeting scheduled?
No, but we should, and I think I guess the recommendation would be, let's at least entertain it and see what it looks like. Like, if we do asset to asset income, you know, where we can kind of like streamline everything, and if it makes sense, we, you know, at least entertain it, I guess.
Okay. And you said something about a wastewater meeting. Is that just with staff, or was that a?
So we had a little internal meeting. The wastewater, I guess there hasn't been a ad hoc meeting with that. Is it since 2014 or?
The CSD meeting?
2015, yeah, a little over a year and a half, yes. This is the Joint Wastewater Committee, which is a standing, it's not ad hoc, it's a standing committee,
Yeah.
actually. But
That's-
it
that's
hadn't met in
That's with Sandy and his CSD?
over a year, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And did you have that meeting?
Yeah, we did. So we had a little internal staff meeting on Monday to kind of get Joni and I up to speed on that. And then on Tuesday, we actually had the ad hoc meeting. Being a new member coming into this and being tossed into that meeting, it was quite interesting and heated.
Explain that.
Well, without going into too much detail, I think the main thing that I'd like to see there is a few more meetings to kind of break that down and work out a better working relationship there and try to find a more positive way of.
What was their discussion regarding our not selling them any more part of our wastewater treatment plant?
No, we didn't talk about that
We-
very much.
yeah.
We asked for an inventory. We asked with their annexation, how many houses are actually coming in, and what the possibility is of second residential units attached or detached, how that was going to work out. So we've asked them for that information. And whether they provided or not, I don't know. So, and they told us about their treatment plan that's still in the process.
Which treatment plant is it?
To recycle their water.
Yeah, they got a grant to do a study.
And a grant to do a study. I think, well, maybe we just heard that in the meeting. I guess we heard that in our internal meeting before we went to the big meeting. And then, as a result of that.
Are you referring to the toilet to tap? Doesn't that sound?
That was
To shower to splawer.
But anyway, as a result of that meeting, where I don't know that a lot was accomplished, other than we realized that maybe we need to meet more often. Brian and I went out to the tribe's water treatment plant, and it was very impressive. And if we had lots of money, a benefactor of some kind, that would be a wonderful thing to possibly make use of here, but we don't have that. We have to be realistic. But it might be something that Los Olivos, Ballard, and the Community Services District might look into. But it was the technology is unbelievable, and the size of the plant is so minuscule compared to what we have. And the
The
It's-
capacity compared to size was pretty impressive, too.
Right, the capacity compared to size.
Watching the
was-
sludge turn into clean water going down the river was
Yeah, it was just,
interesting.
it was amazing. It was an amazing process, and
Is it a tertiary treatment or?
yes, tertiary, and they used the tertiary water in their toilets at the casino hotel, plus they use it for all the landscaping around there.
Did they disclose a
Solvang
cost on that?
by turning them
Hey,
down.
did they disclose
Yeah.
a cost on
Well-
on the plan?
Oh,
They still have a piece of our wastewater treatment plant though.
Well, yeah, it's through the other way.
I gotta get the real number on that.
so that's our,
That's up to speed, okay.
yeah, it was interesting. The meeting was interesting.
Is there anything else we need to discuss?
So, do we have a future meeting set with
We said in May or June, I think they said.
Yeah, the committee itself is supposed to meet once a year, but it
Got it.
as needed. So essentially, you come up with.
Yeah, we're gonna do it again in
You
May
can
or
schedule
June.
whenever.
I guess what I
rotate that.
walked away with was feeling like I'd like to have maybe a smaller meeting first.
Less
and,
items, less.
well, maybe not even less items, but, at least with, especially for me coming in this being new, at least with item number 1, I got to, there was no heat there. We just got to talk and see where things go and kind of work on developing a positive relationship. And I feel like the same thing is needed for this as well.
They're different committees. You're in an ad hoc that's.
No, they're in a,
They're an ad hoc.
item
Yeah.
one is ad hoc.
The standing one requires an agenda to be posted and to be open to the public.
Oh, got it,
So you
okay.
can't
It's a-
have
yeah.
I guess, a more
Okay.
Can't have
close-knit
it.
meeting,
Yeah.
I think is
Got
what
it,
you're
got it.
saying.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
there is a
But
difference
we
in
can
the
do
types.
tours and things like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we can do that anytime.
Would it be inappropriate to ask what the heat was about? Was that directed towards
Charges.
Solvang?
Charges.
Charges?
Charges.
Okay.
Yeah. They resent having to pay when they don't have a say.
Well, I think part of it was over the emergency
Right.
repairs that were done.
Right.
So that's just part of the thing where I see if we had a little better working relationship, that can be made a little more efficient there.
Exactly.
Because essentially what we have is a relationship where the mayor and I go buy a car together, and he says, well, I drive less, so I'm going to take 20% share, and he's going to rely on me to go get the car maintained, such as the oil. And next thing you know, we're only 30,000 miles into it, and the engine blows up. And then I'm like, well, Mayor, why are you mad at me? Let's just go buy another engine. He's like, well, I don't want to put 20%. You forgot to change the oil. So it's just kind of breaking down.
I think some of it were unexpected.
Yeah.
From our side. We
And
had
the
not-
the nature of the
Yes.
relationship has, I think, a lot of potential for
Definitely.
developing heat. And I think there's ways that we can work on kind of massaging that a bit.
I think there definitely needs to be better communication between their staff and our staff. I think they need to not just do it with emails and telephone calls. I think they need to meet eye to eye
Yeah.
and discuss things.
And I think that increase ownership of decision-making or what happens, so that way it's not, point the finger at Solvang or it would just kind of be like, well, we both decided to do that, or.
Well, and that's what the joint committee is. We inform them of what's going on. Like I said, it hasn't met in a
And
long
that's why
time.
we think it should meet more often.
So that's the main problem. So we just want to see more frequent meetings.
Okay, with that, if there's any other question, we'll adjourn.
I have one last little thing, just because Neil said tonight that he would like a laptop too, and my only concern there was, is there any chance of getting some kind of full disk encryption software so that if these things are stolen, and let's say you sent me an email and I have a file on here that has, Excel thing with customer names on it or things like that. Part of the reason why it's on my mind right now is because literally 2 weeks ago, I was getting the groceries out of my car, and I go back up to discover that someone's already thumbed through my car, walked away with my backpack, and, so that could happen with this too.
Well, you can provide him with a tablet just for city business.
Well, that's what that is.
That's what this is.
what that
Okay, well,
is.
that's
But-
fine.
But what I'm talking about
stolen.
is encrypting everything on here so that if it's stolen.
That's all public information. You shouldn't have to encrypt it.
Well, like an example is I did get an email where I was requesting information, but some of the information had customer names on it. So, Brad mentioned to me, make sure that doesn't get out. So,
Well, that would be private client stuff, that's,
I'll talk to Patrick a little bit about
Okay.
it.
It's just to increase, to protect our,
speaking of that, I have this concern. There are other councils that use laptops, but they're 17-inch jobs. And they set up in front of them like that, and they hide behind them so that the public can't see them. That's true.
So I hope I did a decent job tonight. I kept on the side, and then I tried to turn the thing down.
I mean, I'm not
Yeah.
blaming you. What I have observed in other instances is that councils or people on the dais will hide behind their laptops.
Face and put it right here on
You
the side
know,
of the
or
computer.
set it off to the side so they got a direct view, But to have it directly in front of them is not a good idea.
That you'll monitor that.
I will. And I like the paper. We're adjourned.